Chapter 681. Misunderstood. Boom. The loud rumbling sound kept coming out. The whole piece of Mount Myoboku is a huge plant, and they are constantly swaying from side to side. Toad Bunta squatted down hard, and then kicked with two strong hind legs. It immediately leaped forward. When Gong Yi was about to leave here, he stopped. Looking at the plants in front of him constantly shaking, Gong Yi's tyrannical sense of consciousness spread instantly. It's interesting. Just as Gong Yi's voice fell, a huge toad jumped out from his side. It is Toad Bunta. It is like a small mountain at the moment, its whole body is full of majestic strength, and it has obviously entered a state of battle. When Toad went to look down, it already showed murderous intent. Gong Yi, who is now wearing a black robe, has happened to be regarded as Akatsuki. Toad Wentai didn't say anything either, and took advantage of the situation to move towards Gong Yi like the top of Mount Tai. If you don't dodge it now, then Gong Yi will immediately become a mashed meat. Course, the inhuman image of Gong Yi's complete death in Toad Wentai's imagination did not appear at all. When it was a close call and it had already fallen, Gong Yi's whole body immediately flashing away, the figure disappeared in an instant. Boom! A deafening sound, centered on Toad Bunta. Vent out. And below it, when the gravel flew, a deep pit appeared. Around its center, dense cracks like spider webs began to appear, spreading for thousands of meters. Toad Wentai is sitting here, its power is really great. Escaped. When the current Toad Bunta showed horror on his face, he didn't care about his own destructive power. It can be clearly seen that it was almost completely avoided just now. Interesting psychic beast, not bad. A playful voice came from above Toad Bunta. What? After hearing this voice, Toad Bunta's eyes and pupils looked up. Only then did it realize that the human who had just avoided his attack had crossed his hands in front of his chest and stood quietly on top of his head. Damn human, get off me. Toad Wentai was already short-tempered, and now Gong Yi, who is now regarded as an enemy, suddenly stepped on his head, and Toad Wentai was naturally a little runaway. The huge body squatted, followed by a bang, and the powerful legs on the back face immediately. One kick. It actually jumped up again, and then fell hard towards the front, trying to throw off Gong Yi. The rumbling sound continued to be heard, and the toads in all directions began to react at this moment. Toad Wentai swept up a large storm, and the shock wave began to vent in all directions. What's the matter? Is it someone from Akatsuki who is here? The other side of Mount Myoboku, deafening, naturally spread here as well. Just now, Jiraiya sitting leisurely in front of him, he immediately. His expression changed and he looked towards the entrance. It looks like we are already fighting. The lecherous fairies, the guys from Akatsuki are here. Still, Naruto, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes and looked forward with an indignant expression. It's not certain yet, Naruto, don't show your face yet. Jiraiya looked bad, and looked at the little toad next to him. Toji, you take Naruto out of here first. The words fell, Jiraiya immediately. Dodge out of here. Now listening to the sound at the entrance, he knew that the battle was definitely not easy. How could it be ordinary people who can create such a movement? As for Naruto, even though Jiraiya has left, he is not worried. Mount Myoboku has a lot of toads, and even if Akatsuki came here, he would never be able to easily capture Naruto. Here, the current top-level leaders of Mount Myoboku, Toadkin and Toad Hero, etc., they are also immediately towards the entrance, hurried away. For a time, the already tense Mount Myoboku, many toads all began to move towards the entrance, surrounded. Human ninja, you are Akatsuki's man. At the same time. Now for Gong Yi, who seems to be stuck to the top of his head, Toad Bunta finally gave up the idea of constantly trying to get rid of it. At this moment, it pulled out the dagger behind it, and looked at Gong Yi on the top of its head. It can be sensed that he did not sign a blood contract with his Mount Myoboku. But it can be found here, and passed through the labyrinth mountain intact, and silently damage the enchantment stone. Especially when he was facing himself, he was so indifferent. Toad Fumi knew too well. Now that he has entered Mount Myoboku, this guy is very strong. Akatsuki. Gong Yi stood on Toad Wentai's huge head and smiled. It turned out to be someone who thought of himself as Akatsuki. Shrugging his shoulders, Gong Yi looked down at Toad Wenta and said with a smile, I think you've got the wrong person. I'm Hokage from the 5th generation of Konoha village, and I came here to take Naruto back. The reason why I came in rashly just now was because I couldn't contact Jiraiya. 5 generations of Hokage in Konoha village. Hearing Gong Yi's words, Toad Wentai squinted his eyes, obviously full of disbelief. Now for this excuse. Obviously a bit far-fetched. Unable to contact Jiraiya, he came rashly and wanted to pick up Naruto. Ria Toad. Toad Wentai is always angry, and now this human is still thinking of himself as an idiot, trying to deceive himself to coax 2 white smoke out of his nostrils. The next moment, Toad Bunta wanted to be right now. Jumping up again, ready to take him to the outskirts of Mount Myoboku first. It's obviously not a wise move to be wreaking havoc in Mount Myoboku right now. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Gong Yi's helpless smile still hangs on his face when he sees Toad Wentai's runaway look. With a buzz, Gong Yi naturally didn't want to sit still and continue playing with it. Advanced gravity. The next moment, Gong Yi stood on the head of Toad Bunta, even though he was just a seemingly very weak human being. But in an instant, Toad Wentai's complexion changed greatly, and he felt a power of 10,000 hectares suddenly fall. Now Toad Wentai suddenly felt that it was not a person standing on top of his head, but a high mountain was placed on top of his head. How could this be? Toad Bunta's figure that was about to jump just stopped, and it showed a look of horror. The effect of the gravity art is still there, it continues. Now, not only has Kaga Wenta failed to jump up successfully, on the contrary, her huge body began to sink continuously. It's as if Toad Wentai is really carrying a huge and majestic mountain on his back. Little Toad, I explained it to you well, but you don't listen to me. Then there is no way. Gong Yi stood there as usual with a smile on his face. Without a little pressure, it was completely suppressed here. Chapter 682. Toad Wentai. My body, actually. Toad Wentai's heart was shaken by a shocking wave, and it was completely lying on the ground at this moment. A pair of pupils are constantly moving upward at this moment, trying to see what Gong Yi looks like. It has never seen it before, and there are people who can completely suppress themselves like this. After he entered the mature stage, he was invincible according to his huge size. There is no one who can easily defeat it. Today, with this guy on top of his head, he just stood there and didn't even move with Ben, and he had no power to fight at all. Toad Bunta's inner thoughts were complicated, and it said that he had never encountered such a freak. Although at the moment, Toad Wentai didn't recognize Gong Yi, but Gong Yi knew it clearly. Under his feet is a toad like a hill. It is one of the top leaders of Mount Myoboku, the son of 2 Toad immortals, and also the father of Toad-ji, Toad Dragon. It is also the strongest psychic beast of Jiraiya, as well as 4 generations of Hokage and others. Don't look at the current Toad Wentai who is suppressed by himself and has no power to fight back, but it is respected as the Toad Trio in the Ninja World continent. Inside its huge body, there is an extremely powerful Sage Art Chakra, which uses ninjutsu and swordsmanship. Are extremely arrogant. There are many psychic beasts in the ninja continent, but there are only a handful of them that really have the power to assist ninjas. Toad Bunta, it is one of them. Of course, for Gong Yi now, Toad Wentai has no effect. Even now, he hadn't used his own spiritism for a long time. Even if it is used, it is mostly for communication and so on. A series of things. King, I don't believe it anymore. Toad Bunta also seemed to be really in a hurry, and immediately put the sword inserted in the ground. Pull out. At this moment, it forcibly used an incomprehensible posture and slashed towards the top of its head. Reason why he didn't make a move before was because Gong Yi was standing above his head, and it was difficult for him to really attack him. So Toad Wentai, in order to prevent himself from accidentally hurting himself, he always wanted to throw Gong Yi off, and then give him a fatal blow. Now, Toad Wentai has understood that if he doesn't go all out, he is very likely to die. The whistling wind is howling, Toad Wentai's knife is still perfect, and there is no case of hurting it. Soon as it turned its wrist, it was about to cut Gong Yi in half. It's really a willful toad. Feeling the gigantic tachi and the strong wind it brought, Gong Yi turned his head to the side. He shook his head and still had the same smile. It seemed that all the things in front of him would not let him show any panic at all. Golden slash. The golden light soaring to the sky at this moment, it once again shone around the whole piece of Mount Myoboku, all in it. All the toads that came around stopped their steps and looked up. Even Jiraiya did the same, he stopped on a huge flower leaf. How is it possible that this familiar power is? At this moment, Jiraiya's heart was stunned, and his face immediately. Discoloration. Not good, there may be a misunderstanding. Saying that, Jiraiya immediately dodge away, the whole person's speed is faster. Now the golden light that shoots out into the sky, like the second sun that appears, is very dazzling. Fuck the kid, the entrance is fighting. Here's still, Fukasaku the toad waiting for dinner in the house, he immediately. His face changed and he looked out the window. The blue sky before that had been dyed golden at this time, no matter what it was, it couldn't help but palpitate. Are those guys from Akatsuki who don't know how to live or die? They dare to disturb me to make lunch. Shima wearing a small apron said impatiently. She is very annoyed now that someone interrupts her cooking time. Let's go and have a look first. Toad Fukasuo looked bad and said in a deep voice, it shouldn't be easy for those who come here now. Okay, let's go and see the kids. Unhappy, Toad Shima put down his apron, nodded and replied. At the same time, when the toads around had seen this scene, Toad Bunta who was in the field had already stopped. Cold sweat was left on its huge face at the moment. Not that it's soft-hearted. Suddenly changed my mind. It was his own blow that was actually stopped. That's right, he was actually stopped in midair by a huge golden long sword. His own sword was huge, but the long sword that suddenly appeared was even bigger. Toad Wentai can clearly feel that if the golden long sword falls, he should be killed instantly. What the hell is going on? Toad Wentai was suspicious of Gao Sheng at this moment, and he didn't know what to say anymore. Kang, you better calm down and listen to me. The next second Gong Yi shook his head and chuckled, although his sword was only a few meters long, it could cut Gong Yi in half. But at the moment it was like an insurmountable moat, which made him unable to move any longer. Resist. And at this time, accompanied by a piercing sound of steel symphony, a loud crack came. The golden giant sword that shines brightly, it finally moved. The sharp blade, it is no longer just a simple touch, but gradually reversed and slashed forward. An instant, Toad Bunta's sword began to have cracks all over his body. They seemed to come alive, constantly spreading around the blade. Finally, a crisp sound came again. The dagger, which was just so fierce, actually shattered into several pieces and fell down. After the huge blade fell to the ground, rumbling sounds continued to appear. And at this time, toads began to appear one after another all around. They just happened to see the golden giant sword standing on the top of Toad Wentai's head. With only the hilt left in its hand was even more shattered. The fastest Toad Hero and Toad Jien, they were holding weapons, with a look of astonishment on their faces. How is this possible? They don't know where they are now. Toad Bunta's fighting power is extremely strong. But at this moment, they are so embarrassed, so how powerful the enemy should be, they don't know now that Gong Yi has no intention of killing at all, just passive defense. Otherwise, the toad Wentai they have seen now should have been a dead body. Chapter 683. Oh, are you all attracted? Standing on top of Toad Bunta's head, Gong Yi seemed to be standing on the top of a hill and could see all around. 3, 4, 5 toads, they all kept jumping. A while, Gong Yi was now surrounded by a lot of people. These toads are all extremely tall, and they are all like hills. Some have long knives, some have shields, and the weapons are different. Now these orange and blue toads all look at him nervously. Although they are not human beings, they are just toads, but they are not fools. Every toad knows that the guy who can beat Wentai naturally has to be treated with care. For a while, no one took action now, it was all about Gong Yi. I said Wentai, is this how you treat guests? Shrugging his shoulders, Gong Yi waved his hand and retracted the golden giant sword hanging above Toad Bunta's head. From the beginning, he never wanted to kill Wentai, after all, it was just a misunderstanding. Although Gong Yi is not afraid of Mount Myoboku, he has a relationship with Naruto Jiraiya, and he does not want to make the relationship difficult. But it is so small a lesson, it is still necessary to give it. At this time, Toad Shima, who was about to reach the entrance, immediately stopped. She looked at Fukasaku next to her, and said solemnly, "Dad, this power is..." The golden giant sword just now could not escape their eyes. You can't go wrong, this golden special ability should belong to the 5th Hokage of Konoha. Seemingly thinking of something, Toad Shenzuo's face showed a look of hating iron and not steel. Fuck it, maybe something bad is going on. Now that it doesn't know where it is quite possible that the Hokage of the 5th generation of Konoha village was regarded as a member of Akatsuki by its children. Quick, let's hurry over and talk about it. When Toad Fukasaku said this, Toad Shima still didn't understand, and the previous appearance was immediately not seen. Now for the man of the 5th generation Hokage, although Wentai and the others don't know much, the husband and wife have heard Jiraiya a lot. Yes. In the field, along with Gong Yi's words, Gao Wentai revealed that he couldn't believe it. You actually know my name. I know far more than you know. Gong Yi looked down at Toad Wenta at his feet, and said with a faint smile. Wentai. After half a second of silence, Toad Hero, who was here, immediately pull out the 2 knives that are carried on the waist. Wait. Toad Bunta looked around immediately. Drink a lot, give up your hands. It doesn't know where it is now, and I may have really misunderstood it. With the power of the human ninja on his head, he wanted to kill himself easily. But at this moment, he didn't do it. Akatsuki it knew, so it was immediately. My heart sank and I couldn't help thinking, I admit the wrong person. Everyone stop. Just when Toad Bunta was thinking about this, Jiraiya, who was full of panic, immediately flashed over. When he appeared, the whole person immediately. I know that my guess is correct. Where is the member of Akatsuki in front of him? This is not the 5th generation Hokage Gong Yi. But at this time, Jiraiya can't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he sees the Toad Bunta under Gong Yi's feet is still alive. Hokage seems to know about our relationship with Mount Myoboku, so he probably didn't really kill him. Thinking of these, Jiraiya actually has a good impression of Gong Yi, not Yi again. After all, now he clearly knows the temper of Toad Wentai. Gong Yi just killing it may be a waste of death. Looking at the broken blade in the ground, you can tell that the Toad Wentai just now has the intention to kill. If Gong Yi hadn't kept his hand, he could have completely solved it when he was already on defense. But it was probably because he was thinking of himself, so Gong Yi held back his hand. Lord Hokage, I didn't expect you to come to Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya dodged and came down, looking up at Gong Yi above Wentai's head. The situation in the ninja continent is serious, and now the Jinchuriki column force of the Kurigakure village has been captured by Akatsuki. I think you should know. Yes, I've got the news. Well, so this time I came here just to pick up Naruto and bring him back to Konoha village. Release. Advanced gravity technique. Gongyi dodged to Jiraiya's eyes and said slowly. It's really Konoha Hokage, it's really disrespectful just now. While, when I heard a burst of explanation from Jiraiya, all the ins and outs were naturally clear. And now the relaxed Toad Bunta, it is also quite embarrassed to look at Gongyi. The rest of the toads who wanted to do it also retracted their weapons one after another, with a frozen smile on their faces. The wind, blowing gently, made the whole atmosphere a little awkward. You are also protecting my Konoha village's Jinchuriki column force. There was no dissatisfaction on Gongyi's face, and he said calmly, It's understandable that there was a misunderstanding like this. It's actually 5 generations of Hokage. At this time, Gongyi's words fell, and 2 quite small toads jumped over. Toad Fukasaku and Toad Shima, who lived in the hidden lands of Mount Myoboku. They are also known as the powerful confidants of the great Toad Immortal, and the elders of Mount Myoboku. Looking at the 2 toads in front of him, Gongyi looked at them. It turned out to be Elder Fukasaku and Elder Shima. I didn't expect that Hokage-sama would come to Mount Myoboku in person. It's really a big loss. Toad Fukasaku showed a complicated smile and said slowly. At this moment, Kung Fu looked around, looking at the broken earth, and the broken blade of Wentai. Toad Fukasaku doesn't know where, there should be a big battle just now. No, thinking back to the previous scene, Toad Fukasaku also had lingering fears. Apparently, he thought exactly what Jiraiya thought. Gongyi was concerned about his relationship with little Jiraiya, or their Konoha village's relationship with Mount Myoboku, which saved Wentai's life. Otherwise, how could he and Shima still not know that with Gongyi's terrifying strength, it would be too easy to kill Toad Wenta? Chi now looks at Gongyi's indifferent look, and at Wentai's embarrassed face. They can make up for the previous picture. Presumably from the beginning, Toad Bunta should have been suppressed by this. The 5th Hokage of Konoha village. Soon, I thought of these. Wait, Gongyi went to speak again. Toad smiled deeply. Master Hokage, it's a rare visit today, come to my house for a rest first. If that's the case, then it's a nuisance. Feeling the gazes of the toads all around, Gongyi naturally didn't want to stay here, so he simply nodded and responded with a smile. Chapter 684. Toad's Dark Cuisine. Mount Myoboku Hidden Village. Come on, Lord Hokage, eat more. Toad Shima brought a plate of steaming dishes and placed it on the table. This is something I made especially for showing off my skills. Ah, Elder Shima, you don't have to be busy. Gongyi looked at Fukasaku and Shima, who warmly treated him with an unnatural look on his face. There are indeed many dishes on the table, but most of them are green worms, poured with a purple soup. Either the grasshopper was split in half, and it was sprinkled with something I don't know what it was. The toad of Mount Myoboku is really worthy of the dark food on the ninja continent. Founder of. Even Gongyi is really hard to swallow now. Cough cough cough. Jiraiya on the other side seemed to be used to it. He looked at Gongyi and smiled awkwardly. It's really asking for trouble. Shaking his head, Gongyi seemed helpless. Don't be polite, Mr. Hokage, try this taro worm, it tastes very good. Who was sitting next to him, put a white bug into his mouth. Uncle Gongyi, you actually came. When the mealtime was over, Jiraiya found Naruto with Gongyi. Naruto, who had been waiting for a long time, showed excitement when he saw Gongyi. Naruto had already gotten the news that it was not the members of Akatsuki who had just entered Mount Myoboku, but the Hokage of the 5 generations of Konoha village. At first Naruto didn't believe it at all, but when he saw Gongyi, he understood. Turns out everything was true. How about Naruto, how is your practice? Walking in front of Naruto, Gongyi touched his head with a smile on his face. Everything is very good. The lecherous immortal and Lord Fukasaku have taught me a lot of things. Naruto waved his fist, now full of a confident power. It seems that what he has learned for a while has helped him a lot. Naruto came here and adapted very quickly. Jiraiya came over and said casually with a smile on his face, "It's really a great improvement." Well, I can feel that he has indeed made a lot of progress. Nodding, Gong Yi doesn't. Denial. Now I can clearly feel that the chakra power in Naruto is indeed much stronger, and the whole person is more restrained. Obviously, Jiraiya and these toads are still very caring. But this time, before waiting for Jiraiya to speak, Gong Yi said, "But just like this, it's still not enough." It's still not enough. Jiraiya's expression froze, and she looked at Gong Yi with a godly expression. He didn't understand at all, what exactly does Gong Yi mean now? Since bringing Naruto to Mount Myoboku before, Jiraiya has always been training him intently. Taught Naruto many of his ninjutsu skills. But now this will be kung fu. The 5 generations of Hokage in front of me actually say that this is not enough. Hehe, Jiraiya-sama, don't get me wrong. Seeing Jiraiya's bewildered face, Gong Yi shrugged. Naruto is indeed growing very fast now, but compared with what may happen in the future, naturally it is not enough. I need him to grow up fast. So I'm going to let Naruto learn sage art. Learn sage art. Gong Yi nodded with a smile on his face. That's right. When Gong Yi saw Naruto today, he could actually clearly feel that he probably hasn't learned sage mode yet. It is estimated that because of his own relationship, Jiraiya did not teach Naruto this most important thing. Of course, learning sage mode is also risky, which Jiraiya knows very well. So he didn't dare to let Naruto get involved at will without Gong Yi's consent. But Lord Hokage, if you want to learn sage art now, you have to enter sage mode. Hearing this, Jiraiya's face was a little unnatural, and she continued, "So Naruto doesn't even have a master in sage mode, so he can't use sage art at all." Seems to have thought about it for a long time, Jiraiya said hesitantly, "Especially, Lord Hokage, you know that it is still very risky to really learn sage mode." "Of course I know, but now this is the fastest way to make Naruto grow." Gong Yi put down his hand and patted Naruto on the shoulder. "I will take care of this matter myself, Jiraiya, you don't have to worry about it." 4. Sage art, and sage mode, etc. Gong Yi still has a lot of experience. He also gained a lot of experience in Raichi Cave. Sage art is different from normal chakra. Ordinary chakra is obtained through the complete fusion of one's own body energy and spiritual energy. Ninjas can release ninjutsu by consuming a certain amount of chakra. And sage art chakra, it is formed after absorbing natural energy on the basis of body energy and spiritual energy. The ninjutsu cast to consume sage art chakra is called sage art. However, although the use of sage art has a powerful bonus to all kinds of ninjutsu, it requires a premise. That is to enter sage mode. But it is not an easy thing to successfully learn sage mode. Gong Yi knows that in the entire Hokage world, there are only a handful of people who can fully learn sage mode. But Lord Hokage, the sage art of Mount Myoboku, may be a little different from the sage art of your Raichi Cave. Jiraiya looked at Gong Yi's confident look, and he seemed to be a little unspeakable. This really won't be a problem. 4. Frog sage art. I naturally have some research. Gong Yi nodded and replied in a deep voice. Besides, there is no problem with Mr. Jiraiya, you are here. Well, Gong Yi is not far-fetched now for Mount Myoboku's sage art. Really did some research on the frog sage art. In fact, sage mode is basically the same. Mount Myoboku sage art needs to be still in order to absorb natural energy, and it usually lasts for a short time, depending on the amount of chakra, usually about 5 minutes. After being proficient, you can shorten the time for refining sage art chakra to an instant and activate sage mode. For example, the toads of Mount Myoboku have never seen them refining sage art chakra in battle, but they are indeed using sage art. In the beginning, Gong Yi successfully learned the sage mode in Raichi Cave. He has also briefly researched on Mount Myoboku, Shikatsu Forest, etc. Such secret realms, all their unique sage modes. Later, it was gradually improved, and the sage mode that I am currently using. That's it, that's why Gongyi didn't ask Jiraiya to teach Naruto. Because what I have given to Naruto is the most complete sage mode. Please download Filu Shouken's latest chapter and LT, please keep this paragraph, or block the collection of IP. Chapter 685. The Ignorant or Fearless. A long silence, Jiraiya nodded. I understand Hokage-sama. Looking at Gongyi, Jiraiya was not embarrassed, but seemed to understand. As for Sage Mode, I have not fully learned it myself. If Hokage-sama wants to make Naruto truly learn successfully, I think it also requires the cooperation of the adults. Well, I'll go and say hello to the big toad fairy in a while, and then I'll look for it. Gongyi was not surprised, and replied to Jiraiya lightly. Jiraiya's Sage Mode, Gongyi naturally knows that it's hard to say. According to the original work, Jiraiya's Sage Mode requires the fusion of Fukasaku and his wife to assist in order to be realized. From this, it can be seen that the Sage Mode on Jiraiya's side is really unlearned. If I remember correctly, Naruto also wanted to be opportunistic at the beginning, and wanted to use the cooperation of the Fukasaku and his wife to enter the Sage Mode. Pity, being disturbed by Kyuubi, Ninetales unable to merge with. But these things are not very difficult here in Gongyi. Combined with his own understanding and Fukasaku's teaching, Naruto should be able to learn it soon. Of course, Gongyi didn't choose immediately. I left with Naruto. I naturally wanted to use the abundant natural energy in Mount Myoboku to make him learn quickly. As for Jiraiya, since Gongyi is here today, he must choose to leave Mount Myoboku and go to a Megakure village to investigate. He didn't reach Mount Myoboku before, and with Jiraiya's words, he probably wouldn't leave Naruto's side easily. But now that I am here, everything is completely different. With himself in Naruto, neither Akatsuki nor anyone else can threaten Naruto. Jiraiya is well aware of such things. Since you have made plans, Hokage-sama, then I won't stay here on Mount Myoboku for long. Sure enough. When Gongyi just thought of this. After that, Jiraiya looked at him immediately. Said. After listening to Jiraiya, Gongyi looked at Naruto. You go back with Toji first, I'll find you later. I understand Uncle Gongyi. Looking at Jiraiya, then at Gongyi, Naruto nodded in response. This time, Naruto rarely asked anything here. Situation in the ninja continent is tense, and Naruto can naturally see it clearly. In this way, he knew that he couldn't make trouble for Gongyi anymore. Now he feels he should practice more and help Gongyi against Akatsuki. Jiraiya-sama, you are going to a Megakure village. Seeing Tadayoshi and Naruto leaving, Gongyi didn't talk nonsense and asked Jiraiya straight to the point. Yes, it's too late now. Jiraiya did not hide it, but nodded gradually with a serious face. I was ready to set off before, but now Naruto suddenly has such a thing. I have to postpone, but today, Lord Hokage, you are here, you will be relieved. Jinchuriki column force from Kurigakure village has been captured. I think Akatsuki will reach out to our Konoha village soon. These days, Jiraiya thought a lot after learning about the events in the village of Kurigakure. Simply summing up, he can clearly know that Akatsuki is getting more and more unscrupulous. Now that they can forcibly enter the heavily guarded Iwagakure village and Kurigakure village to snatch the Jinchuriki column power, then it seems that they can also enter the Konoha village recklessly and snatch Naruto away without a doubt. Weapon, in the ninja continent. Now Akatsuki takes them away. If all were lost, what would be the consequences? Jiraiya didn't dare to think about it. That's it. Wait. Things. Jiraiya had to make more decisions, and she must go to a Megakure village to check the investigation information. If only he could discover some secrets about Akatsuki, or about Akatsuki leaders. So aside from The ninja continent, it is naturally a life-saving thing for the entire Konoha village. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's expression became more determined. Now the matter with Akatsuki needs to be done as soon as possible. Well, since it's been agreed before, you have to be careful, Jiraiya-sama. After thinking for a while, Gongyi didn't have much expression on his face. Although Akatsuki's members have been killed a lot, their leader should not be underestimated. Jiraiya, please don't mess around. If there is a problem, that would be very deadly. Don't worry, Lord Hokage, there will be no problems. Hearing Gongyi's concern, Jiraiya's complexion changed again. Eased, as long as I want to leave now, they should not be able to keep me with Akatsuki alone. Not knowing Nagato's true strength at all, Jiraiya shrugged and smiled. Furthermore, I won't choose to contact them directly, I just want to get some useful information. Well, it's really fearless for those who don't know, and now looking at Jiraiya's confident look, Gongyi also smiled helplessly. He still underestimated Nagato, and he underestimated this Akatsuki. Original book, Jiraiya is still too careless. If he had investigated Akatsuki carefully before, or if he had been more cautious, he would not have ended up like that. Besides, he is too stubborn, and often confines one thing in his mind, and then forces himself into a dead end. Jiraiya's death is actually partly because of Nagato, and partly because of himself. Final analysis, Jiraiya is still completely penetrated by Sarutobi Hiruzen's thoughts, always with his own will as the core, and wants to guide others. Fortunately, because of the current existence of Gongyi, Jiraiya's unpleasant will has gradually been changed. It can be seen from today that he is indeed beginning to change gradually. Soon, suppressing his thoughts, Gongyi also looked at Jiraiya and smiled and finally nodded. These things, it's up to you, Jiraiya, to be your own master. Well. Jiraiya stepped forward and patted Gongyi on the shoulder. Naruto is all relying on you, Hokage-sama, and Akatsuki will go straight back to Konoha village after my investigation. Okay, then I wish you all the best, Jiraiya. Haha, no problem, don't worry. Jiraiya laughed, and the whole person immediately. Get out of here. Chapter 686. The Talisman of the Fairy. Deep inside Mount Myoboku, inside a temple. A huge old toad, which was sitting in it, seemed very lazy. I came directly to Mount Myoboku without notice, which is really disturbing. Standing at the bottom, Gongyi now looked up at the big toad fairy and said slowly. Ah, 5 generations of Hokage, you are really polite. Up the water glass next to it, the big toad immortal took a sip and said slowly, you can come to my Mount Myoboku, and the picture you saw before is right. Big toad immortal's squinting eyes widened involuntarily, looking at Gongyi in front of him. Can be seen that it has a little more fear and a little more understanding. It seems that now it has foreseen something. I've heard about Immortal Big Toad for a long time, your ability to predict is very powerful. Smile, Gongyi said lightly, I just didn't expect it to be so. It's all just rumors, don't listen to the 5th Hokage easily. Putting down the glass, the big toad fairy continued to speak slowly. Quote. Hearing this, the smile on Gongyi's face did not diminish. He naturally knew clearly that the big toad immortal in front of him was not simple. In the era of Otsutsuki, it has survived unharmed to this day. Even according to records, it taught Hagoromo sage art, and gave him the treasure of the Toad Kingdom, the talisman of the immortal, which is covered with sage art chakra. Later, Otsutsuki Hagoromo used this thing to save his younger brother Otsutsuki Hamura, and used the power of sage art to fight Kagaya for several months, and finally won. In the world of Hokage ninjas, it is said that Otsutsuki Kagaya is, but this big toad fairy is also very tyrannical. As one of the immortals of the 3 immortal lands, the great toad immortal is the only one who interferes with human life. When Otsutsuki Kagaya used the divine tree to absorb the power of the earth, it stands to reason that the 3 holy places will be affected, but the great toad immortal was the only one who came out. Before Kagaya came, I am afraid that only fairies have superpowers, because they have sage art. They don't need the chakra of the divine tree, but the divine tree absorbs the power of the earth and nature, and even the place where they are is affected, so it comes out to find Hagoromo and Hamura, and guide them to see the sacred tree. The big toad fairy, although it can predict, can only see part of the future. In this case, there will be many possibilities in the future, and then the big toad fairy will choose a path that is very beneficial to him. He himself said that the earth will wither, and they will have the same fate, to put it bluntly. He didn't want to lose the power of nature, so he came out to use Hagoromo and Hamura to fight Kagaya. If you look in an extreme direction, the big toad fairy in front of Gongyi's own eyes is also a very dangerous guy. Although all of this is all speculation after Gongyi became Hokage, through book records and Hokage's memory. But in disguise, it is undeniable that Immortal Toad definitely needs to be more careful. It's been pretty solid from start to finish. Gongyi isn't exactly one to stick to the original. What can be found on this ninja continent, so it is harmless to look at this big toad immortal. But Gongyi, he also has a dike to protect the heart of the big toad fairy. It didn't take long. Gongyi's thoughts came to this point, and he briefly said a few words to Immortal Big Toad, and then he immediately left. He also didn't have much interest in talking to a toad who seemed to be falling asleep at all times. He will bring peace or destruction to the world. It seems that all this needs to be seen after the changes. Seeing that Gongyi had gone far, the squinted eyes of the big toad sage looked forward quietly, and whispered alone. Quote, Uncle Gongyi, what did you mean by sage art earlier? From Immortal Big Toad, Gongyi found Naruto directly. Now the two are now on Mount Myoboku, a location where natural energy is very abundant. Looking around here, there are all large toad statues one after another. They look incomparably delicate, as if they were forged by a master sculptor. Ordinary people may not know it, but for Gongyi, it can be clearly understood. In fact, they are all the products of people who failed to learn sage mode and finally petrified. The sound of hula kept flowing. In front of the toad statue, there is a small waterfall. However, it is not the blue water that flows down, but the oil that shows the yellow color. This is a special oil called toad oil that ordinary people understand. According to previous research and Fukasaku's statement, it should have the function of actively helping people absorb natural energy. As long as it is rubbed on the body, the natural energy will automatically enter its body. Although Gongyi has not used it before, but just listening to it, the effect should be good. The sound of hula flowing with oil and water kept coming, and below it was a small pool of water. The center of it, there is also a stone statue of a toad, and oil is constantly flowing from its mouth, and it gathers in the pool. Simply feeling everything around him, Gongyi naturally knew this scene, and it was very familiar. In the original book, Fukasaku brought Naruto here to practice sage mode. Gongyi may not understand this place just by looking at the original book, but when I stand here in person today, Gongyi discovered that Mount Myoboku was originally. The natural energy is very abundant, but here, it is even more abundant. It seems to be the most abundant natural energy treasure place in the entire Myomu Yamanaka. Being here is very helpful for cultivating sage mode. At least if Gongyi was here at the time, he would be much stronger than at Raichi Cave. What is sage art? I'll tell you later. A short half-second, Gongyi came back to his senses. He looked at Naruto and reminded, now there is one point, I want to explain it to you in advance. Uncle Gongyi, what do you want to explain? Gongyi's face was full of confusion, and he asked with some incomprehension. Well, it's also about this sage art in disguise. Kung Fu Shenzuo did not come here, so naturally Gongyi was needed to explain to Naruto. In fact, Gongyi had found Shenzuo before, and after a simple understanding, there was no need for it to come. Basically, He knows that as long as he integrates his own experiences, there will be no problems. So on Fukasaku's side, Gong Yi didn't let him come over, but chose to teach Naruto alone. Chapter 687. Sage Art and Sage Mode. About Sage Art. Yes, you should listen to Naruto now. Seeing Naruto's listening appearance, Gong Yi smiled and said, ninjutsu uses its own internal energy, while Sage Art uses external energy to use it. External. Hearing this, Naruto scratched his head. What's going on? I think you should know that ninjutsu is a technique of cultivating the mental energy and physical energy in one's body and using chakra. Uncle Gong Yi, you said this before, I remember it. Seeing Naruto nodding, Gong Yi continued, well, Sage Art's words are: continue to cultivate the chakra that you have cultivated, plus the natural energy absorbed from the outside, and then create a newer and stronger chakra and use it. Technique. In this way, the ninjutsu, demonic illusion, and even Sijutsu so far can be greatly improved. After listening carefully to Gong Yi's words, Naruto's face showed a trace of complexity, the mental energy and physical energy inside the body, as well as the external energy. Well, in a nutshell, fusion of these three energies to cultivate chakra and activate the spell is called Sage Art. So that's the case, then I totally understand Uncle Gong Yi. Touching his chin, Naruto seemed to think through it, and a smile appeared on his face. However, before Gong Yi could speak again, Naruto scratched his head and continued, but Uncle Gong Yi, what is the so-called natural energy talking about? Natural energy is very simple, it is the energy that exists in the atmosphere and the earth other than itself. The atmosphere and the earth. In layman's terms, it is the air and the ground. Digesting Gong Yi's words for a while, Naruto murmured thoughtfully, so that's how it is. Okay, there's no reason to say it. Looking at Naruto's appearance, Gong Yi smiled wryly, and he walked to one of the toad statues. Now I'll show it to you personally. At this time, Gong Yi's voice fell, and the natural energy around him gathered crazily. They all started pouring into Gong Yi's body, and he gradually began to change. A while, Gong Yi was completely in sage mode. Natural energy is abundant, and it seems that the opening of sage mode has greatly improved. Quietly feeling the constant flow of natural energy around, Gong Yi doesn't. You whispered softly. If you put it outside at this moment and enter sage mode by yourself, it is absolutely impossible to do so quickly. Although it is said that Gong Yi entered the fairy model, his speed is not slow. But in this Myogi Yamanaka, Gong Yi felt that he could almost enter the state. Slowly leaning over, one of the arms stretched out to grab the toad statue. Boom! A muffled sound came out, and Naruto looked at Gong Yi in front of him. I saw this toad statue with a height of 5 or 6 floors, it was actually lifted by Gong Yi with just one arm. Okay, so strong. Naruto opened his mouth wide, and he found his uncle Gong Yi, who just held up a finger at the moment. Then the huge toad statue was lifted up in the air with ease by him. Naruto now seems to see a picture. Gong Yi is like an ant, actually lifting an elephant. A bit unbelievable. Although Naruto knew that Gong Yi was strong, he still felt shocked when he saw such a picture again. See, this is the power of sage art that incorporates natural energy. Seeing Naruto's surprised look, Gong Yi smiled, without the slightest expression on his face. This is how he slowly put the toad statue on the ground again. The rumbling sound came out again, and the entire surrounding ground felt a distinct tremor. Even Naruto didn't stand still and sat down on the ground. Strong, really strong. Naruto waved his hand, but his face also showed confusion at the moment. But Uncle Gong Yi, I don't understand what you did at all. I just saw you, Uncle Gong Yi, and suddenly raised the stone statue. It's normal that you can't see anything now. Clap the dust on his hands. Gong Yi came to Naruto again. Right now, with your current state, you still can't feel this natural energy. The same thing means, now you want to absorb it into your body, but you can't do it at all. Then what about Uncle Gongyi? Just after Gongyi finished explaining, Naruto immediately jumped up on the ground and asked urgently, "Natural energy, absorb it into the body, turn on Sage Mode, these. What do I need to do to be successful?" Naruto, who wanted to become stronger, was very excited now. Because under this circumstance, after seeing Gongyi's simple demonstration, he was already extremely impatient. He didn't know yet, the Gongyi just now, he didn't use all his strength at all. It seems that in Naruto's eyes, he just used that 1/10,000th of his power. Equal is because of this. Now Naruto, who wants to become stronger, is looking forward to it. He is also most urgent about being able to learn such power. After all, I have mastered a lot of Gongyi experience before, and later learned a lot of ninjutsu, and I have practiced here on Mount Myoboku for a long time. So with this Sage Mode, maybe he can be as powerful as Sasuke and serve Uncle Gongyi. The reason why Naruto keeps trying to become stronger is that he doesn't want to drag Gongyi back. Especially here in Akatsuki now, they have captured Kumogakure Village, Iwagakure Village, Kurigakure Village, etc. People Jinchuriki column force. Of course Naruto knows these things, and he can understand them too. These guys from Akatsuki, they're crazy and keep trying to catch people Jinchuriki column force. As a QB 9-tails person Jinchuriki column force, it is naturally very dangerous. Naruto understood that in order to protect himself, the entire village was under martial law. And his own uncle Gongyi left in Konoha village and came to Mount Myoboku to pick him up. Invisibly, all this is to protect him. Well, now although Gongyi has a purpose, Naruto doesn't know it. He felt that it was all because of himself, so that's why Naruto desperately wanted to become stronger, so that he didn't need to trouble anyone. And he can also really fight and contribute to Gongyi. Feilu reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, push and watch the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmate find 99 Novel Network and LT. Please keep the collection this paragraph, otherwise block the collection of IP. Chapter 688. Let Naruto die. Actually, it's not difficult to be successful. Looking at Naruto with a heavy heart, Gongyi was not impatient. Now Naruto has become the stronger, the more beneficial it will naturally be to himself. Like Sasuke, he has inherited his will perfectly. In this way, the reincarnation of Indra and Asura has been completely mastered by himself. That's it, they are a very rare fighting force in their hands. Looking back at the original work, the combat power of the two of them was no joke. As long as they can be used properly, the two of them will be the most important people in their ultimate plan. There is no need to worry about Sasuke's side. When he goes back and transplants Uchiha Itachi's eyes to merge with each other, it will become the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. As long as that pair of Uchiha clan's highest pupil technique appears, Sasuke will naturally make a leap. Naruto taught him Sage Mode by himself, and in his spare time, Gongyi also planned to let him try to control Kyuubi, 9-tails. In this way, his ability will naturally increase a lot. Everything, Gongyi had already arranged it. Of Sasuke and Naruto is also going step by step according to Gongyi's thoughts. Senses, Gongyi smiled at Naruto and explained patiently, to absorb natural energy into your body and activate Sage Mode, you first need to be one with nature. Ah. Completely clueless, Naruto felt a little esoteric and said, and, to be one with nature. Well. Gongyi said this, his face gradually became serious, and then he continued, in a disguised way. That is to die. Uncle Gongyi, what are you talking about? As if he had heard it wrong, Naruto now danced and asked, go to hell. Naruto to imagine that to absorb the energy of nature was to die. Now Naruto said that the monk Zhang-er was puzzled. Okay, don't worry, it's just a metaphor. Looking at Naruto being a little frightened, Gongyi smiled and patted his head, of course you won't really die. Then Uncle Gongyi, What do you mean by that? Listen to me first. Waiting. Naruto spoke again, and Gongyi continued in a deep voice. If you want to absorb natural energy, you must perceive it, that is to say, you must attract the natural energy to your side, and then disguise it, that is to say, with the natural energy. Nature blends into one and controls the flow of natural energy in and out. Well, it might sound a little difficult. Looking at Naruto, it seemed that he couldn't help but wanted Gongyi not to stop, and said again, if the source of all this can be attributed to 3 words, that is, can't move. What is this, can't move natural energy? Naruto felt that he was going back and forth, and he was a little stunned by Gongyi. Hehe, I can't move. It is said that after the flow of natural energy stops, when the flow of natural energy is reconciled, you can feel it for the first time. Listening to Gongyi's explanation again, Naruto stared at him and shrugged. That means, just don't move. If that's the case, Uncle Gongyi. It seems so easy. Naruto's nervous face immediately. Smiling, he squinted and smiled, as if relieved. No, you may have misunderstood. Gongyi shook his head, and said with a deep meaning on his face, actually, it's the most difficult thing to really keep still. Although this is the strangest practice I've ever seen, as long as you don't move, you should be able to absorb the natural energy you mentioned, Uncle Gongyi. In a normal sense, you feel the natural energy. Putting his hand on his chin, Gongyi continued to speak lightly, however. If you suddenly do this, I think it may be difficult for you to do it, and it will take some time. Ah, is this time-consuming? Hearing all kinds of requests, Naruto thought about it carefully. He also looked like a deflated ball, and his face was ugly. So Naruto, do you want to study now? No more nonsense. Gongyi lowered his head and asked Naruto. The current Gongyi, naturally, will not force Naruto to study. If he doesn't want to, then Gongyi also decides immediately. Back to Konoha village. When the time comes, let's talk about the future, anyway. Sasuke has grown up, and Naruto can't always be like this. If forcibly oppressed, there may be unexpected situations. No. Hearing this, Naruto's unhappy face immediately changed, and suddenly it became very serious. He clenched his fists and said to Gongyi, Uncle Gongyi, I mean I don't want to spend too much time. After all, in Akatsuki, their target is me, and I need to become stronger as soon as possible. Oh, not bad. After half a second of silence, Gongyi's face showed a look of relief. The current Naruto is as expected by Gongyi. He is indeed a very good seedling, and also a hard-working child. At least for now, he is still very relieved. If Naruto is willing to degenerate because he has himself, then Gongyi will need to change his plan. But at this moment, it seems that Naruto did not choose to hide behind his back and live a life of mediocrity because of his own existence. Gongyi could feel that because of Sasuke's stimulation, Naruto seems to want to practice crazy and become stronger now. Thinking of this, Gongyi said, actually, there is another way to think about not wasting time. Really, Uncle Gongyi, teach me this now. Naruto looked happy and replied excitedly. Gongyi turned sideways, pointed to the pool of earth-colored oil behind Naruto, and said, the waterfall behind this is the secret toad oil of Mount Myoboku. Toad oil. Stepping to come here, Gongyi looked at him and continued, come here, stretch out a hand. Seeing Naruto coming over, Gongyi stretched out his finger and dipped it in the oil pool. Then, under Naruto's puzzled face, Gongyi smeared this little bit of toad oil on his arm. This toad oil has the power to attract natural energy. Withdrawing his arm, Gongyi said in a deep voice, it can make your practice more effective, and at the same time, it can also help you practice in disguise. Gongyi told Naruto the things that Fukasaku told him before, without any reservations. Now combined with his own experience, he is indeed ready to let Naruto quickly turn on Sage mode. Please download Fei Lu Shao Kan's latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmate find 99 Novel Network. Chapter 689. 3 in 1. Ah, there is such a convenient thing, doesn't it? Looking down at his arm, Naruto's face showed surprise. That's right. Faint smile, Gong Yi replied, with the help of this toad oil, the skin can gradually feel the natural energy. Indeed, as Uncle Gong Yi said, some can feel it. Naruto was gradually excited, and seemed to have seen some kind of dawn that could become stronger. This is much better than a pointless waste of time. It's really not to be underestimated, but... Gong Yi paused as he spoke and looked at Naruto in front of him. It also comes with risks. Half of Naruto's face in front of him showed orange eyeshadow, but it looked like a toad. That was smeared with toad oil did not look like a human, but instead looked like the claws of a toad. Uncle Gong Yi, this is this. Naruto, who just showed a smirk, immediately stopped. He looked at his hand and became a little panicked. That's the side effect of toad oil. No surprise, Gong Yi could have imagined it a long time ago. He shook his head and said with a wry smile, if you can't use it with someone who is skilled in manipulating natural energy, you may turn into a frog. What? Naruto immediately. Lying on the edge of the pool, he looked over with the help of the reflection of the oil and water. What is this? Some miserable screams echoed around, and Naruto never imagined that he would actually become like this. Hedon looked helpless. Uncle Gong Yi, I don't want to become a frog. Calm down, Naruto. Gong Yi patted Naruto on the shoulder and motioned him to take a look. Looking at the reflection of the oil and water again, Naruto woke up like a big dream. Okay. Everything is in balance. Spiritual energy and physical energy, natural energy, all 3 in 1. Gong Yi said, Naruto, if you want to truly use such power, you must balance the 3. Balanced energy. Well, if there are too few, there is no way to cultivate Sage Art Chakra. But, looking back at the toad statues around, Gong Yi said again, if there is too much natural energy, the human body will be devoured by it and turn into the frog you just saw. If you absorb it a little bit, you can become like you just now, come back. But if you ingest too much and you turn into a frog, there's no way you can change it back. Gong Yi raised his finger and pointed forward. If once you turn into a frog, you will be further integrated with nature. Those who have failed in their practice will end up with you frog statues. Quote. Naruto glanced at it, his pupils could not help shrinking, all around were full of frogs and stone statues, and they were so numerous that it was impossible to count them. These, all of them are people who have failed in their cultivation, so what is the final fate? His heart sank, and Naruto swallowed, seemingly unacceptable. Turn into a frog, but now I have to turn into a stone statue. No matter how much I think about it, Naruto feels that the risk is too high. Okay, these are just simple warnings. He came to Naruto, the smile on Gong Yi's face did not diminish, but with me here, naturally there is no need to worry about this. If you absorb too much natural energy, I will use chakra to expel it from your body. Rubbing Naruto's head, Gong Yi squinted his eyes. In this way, you won't be in a situation like them. Well, Naruto, do you want to try it now? Looking at Naruto who was stunned, Gong Yi asked him. Good. Silent for half a second, Naruto nodded heavily. This sage mode, I must learn to succeed. Since Naruto has agreed before, he will not back down now either. He understood that with Gong Yi here now, there would be no dangerous situation. Furthermore, Naruto has gradually grown over time. He also understands that when learning powerful ninjutsu, the risks associated with it are also very high. It is simply unrealistic to want to gain strength without a little effort. Naruto knows that power and effort are in contrast. That's how it is, now I have to seize the most important opportunity in front of me. Gong Yi was able to be here personally to teach him, but it was very rare. In Naruto's chaotic mind, when his thoughts came to this point, his eyes became firmer. Uncle Gongyi, start now. Good. Simply explained so much, Gongyi is no longer nonsense. Short on time, and you don't have much to waste. According to Gongyi's idea, he was going to shorten a few days for Naruto to successfully enter Sage Mode. After all, Jiraiya has already set off, and I need to go there too. My son, is it really okay for Naruto to learn Sage Mode now? Standing on a huge leaf, Toad Shima looked forward. Where there are 5 generations of Hokage, there shouldn't be any problems. The Toad Fukasaku next to him also stared in front of him. Just after Gongyi had finished talking with Toad Fuka, the 2 toads came here. Thousands of meters away from them, where is the location of the toad statues? Although Naruto is not a member of Mount Myoboku, after all he signed a blood contract with him. And has practiced for so long, he is still half of Mount Myoboku's disciple. So after hearing that Gongyi wanted to teach Sage Mode to Naruto, Shima was also a little worried. After all, although Gongyi can perfect the Master Sage Mode, it is different from their Mount Myoboku, but this skill, Toad Fukasaku has no worries, but smiled. Don't worry, Naruto is the 5th generation Hokage. Big, according to little Jiraiya, anyone can harm Naruto, but he alone can't. Furthermore, the ninja world outside is already so chaotic, it's not a bad thing for him to improve himself. Toad Fukasaku seemed to think a long way, and said slowly, at least in the face of Akatsuki's group of guys, he has the ability to protect himself. Well, your father is right. Nodding his head, Toad Shima didn't say any more. On Mount Myoboku's side, they have done their best to be kind and righteous, and basically they don't have any reservations. After the 2 toads communicated briefly, they also quietly left. Because after thinking about it, it doesn't seem like they have anything to do here. Chapter 690. Rain was pouring down. With the whistling wind, the village of Omegakure is dark and damp. The thick dark clouds covered the sky, and it never dissipated for a long time. The strong wind caught the rain and blew on the towering buildings. Ripples are constantly appearing on the surface of the calm flowing water. A green toad stuck out half of its head in the water at this time. It opened its mouth, and an arm stretched out from the toad's mouth. A clatter, a slap to the water, then the head, then the whole body. The river continued to make waves. Jiraiya squatted on the water and looked at Omegakure village. He raised the corner of his mouth and showed a smile. Omegakure village, successfully dived. The rain continued to fall, and they were extremely dense, gradually soaking Jiraiya's body. He didn't care about these, but the smile on his face did not diminish. This is simply unexpectedly simple. Standing up slowly, looking at the towering buildings in front of Omegakure village, Jiraiya muttered to herself, this time, I will end all Akatsuki's intrigues. A azure blue thunder and lightning smashed down, echoing in the buildings of Omegakure village. Rain started to get denser, and it started to get bigger, as if they were foreshadowing what would happen next for Jiraiya. On the tallest building in the center of Omegakure village, Pain Heavenly Path suddenly moved. What's wrong? Looking at the abnormality of Pain Heavenly Path, Conan, who was standing behind, asked. Someone seems to be blocking my rain. The rippled Rinnegan bloomed strangely. Pain Heavenly Path said thoughtfully, this chakra feeling is quite strong. Quote. Hearing this, Conan did not speak any more, but fell silent. She knew that Pain Heavenly Path would naturally not perceive errors. The entire Kurigakure village is under the surveillance of the Rain Tiger Freedom Technique. This is Pain's unique secret technique, a perception ninjutsu that injects his own chakra into the rain and can control it freely. In the village of Omegakure, it rains every Sunday, using Pain's chakra to create a rain cloud and then make it fall. Every drop of rain that falls during the activation is closely related to Pain's feeling. Because the chakra outside the village will block the rain, it can sense the trespasser. In addition, Since this art will react to the place where it is activated, the rain will continue to fall until the pain is released. Seal. Therefore, when the whole plan has been carried out, Pain has continued to launch this technique to monitor the Omegakure village, just to prevent anyone from appearing to cause trouble. After all, the leader of Akatsuki, he is in Omegakure village, the ninja continent is well known. That is because, when they continue to capture the tailed orc Jinchuriki, column force, all the ninja Omura also constantly send ninjas to come to inquire about the news. At the same time, there are also many powerful ninjas who want to get rid of them, and then save the Jinchuriki column force. Pity, the majority of them. All gone and gone, they've all died here. Because when they entered the village of Omegakure, they were actually discovered by Pain. And today, it seems that some guy from the ninja continent is restless again, and came to Omegakure village to die. Well, for Pain, Heavenly Path and Conan, they seem to be used to it. The heavy rain poured down, and it seemed to be a lot more ferocious. Pain, Heavenly Path stood above the open-air platform, and the howling wind blew the robe he was wearing. He ignored the troubles caused by the surrounding environment, and kept his eyes fixed on the front. Conan, after the rain stops for a while, you will use the spell to find the intruder. Well, leave it to me. In the darkness behind him, Conan nodded and walked out. It's started. Good. As soon as Conan finished speaking, Pain, Heavenly Path immediately. Hand seal with both hands, hands raised towards the sky. The thick dark clouds before, they actually began to spread. As if a strange force was controlling them. The always dark and damp Omegakure village, it actually began to show a trace of dawn. The dense rain before and the cold wind constantly blowing around, they are also slowly stopping and gradually collapsing. A noisy sound, with Pain, Heavenly Path putting down his hand, it seems that everything has stopped. Go ahead, Conan. Pain, Heavenly Path said lightly. Well. Both hands standing, Conan closed his eyes. Immediately, her whole body actually began to peel off continuously, and her whole body seemed to turn into pieces of paper. While, behind Pain, densely packed papers floated. They began to fold automatically until they finally turned into paper butterflies, and then began to spread and dance around the village of Omegakure. The clear sky was full of Conan's paper butterflies, and they began to fly all over the village of Omegakure. Even though you're just a little bastard. Jiraiya stood in the stomach of the Toad's secret technique, looked at the two ninjas who were imprisoned by him, and smiled, but judging from the fact that you are holding kunai, you can be considered ninjas. Hehe, is this missing nin logo a symbol of loyalty to Pain? Two imprisoned ninjas, the forehead guards on their heads caught Jiraiya's eyes. Belonging to the 4 vertical bars of the village of Omegakure was slashed with a knife. Exactly the same as the forehead guard of Akatsuki members, this is the symbol of the renegade village. Damn it, who are you? What is this place, bastard, let us go. Continued to struggle while biting Kiba, looking at Jiraiya with resentment on their faces. The two of them wanted to have a drink, but they didn't expect that they would be caught inexplicably. Here is the belly of a frog. Jiraiya raised her mouth and looked at them with a wicked smile. I advise you not to fight fearlessly, this place will not be discovered, and no one will be able to come here to save you. You, what do you want to do? I'm telling you, you're just like this. You're looking for your own death. Two ninjas could hear Jiraiya's words and kept trying to break free. However, there is absolutely no chance of success at all. Because they found that with their own strength, it seemed impossible to escape from here. Hehe, I should have said that, it's me who should ask the question. Jiraiya stepped forward, looked at the two of them and said with a smile, you should understand one thing now. You were caught, not me. So it's best to be obedient and listen to my questions, that's your best solution. Jiraiya said, and took out a feather. Chapter 691. Finally done, Uncle Gongyi. Inside Mount Myoboku, there was an excited voice. Just after he left on Jiraiya's side, Gongyi. accelerated the progress of his practice towards Naruto. At the same time, today Naruto has finally fully mastered Sage Mode. The help of Gong Yi, combined with the toad oil from Mount Myoboku, the effect is very significant. I saw Naruto in front of Gong Yi now, he has completely transformed. The whole human body is flooded with natural energy and at the same time completely different from before. Naruto turns on Sage Mode, the orange eye shadow and the toad-like horizontal pupil are clearly visible. Gong Yi is no stranger to his current form. Good, fast learning. Gong Yi smiled, looked at Naruto in front of him and praised. I have to say that the reincarnation of Indra has a very strong ability to learn and understand. Of Naruto's crane before was completely unrealistic. After this period of time, it seems that Naruto's talent is very high. Well, at least for now, it has saved a lot of time. Originally, Gong Yi thought that even though he taught Naruto by himself, he couldn't be too quick as a master. But today it seems that I really think too much. Okay, now that we have learned, we can go back to the village. Senses, Gong Yi looked at Naruto with a smile and said. Great. Canceling Sage Mode, Naruto waved his fist excitedly on his face. I can finally go back to see everyone. That guy Sasuke definitely can't think of it, I won't be weaker than him now. His face showed some anticipation. Now that this is Kung Fu, Naruto is naturally still his enemy. Friends. With a very high fighting spirit. Although the two didn't have as much contact as before, they were constantly fighting in the dark. Especially when he came back from Orochimaru, Sasuke was like a big mountain, giving Naruto a lot of pressure. He felt that he was completely suppressed by Sasuke. But now this is a Kung Fu, and through the practice of Mount Myoboku, Naruto feels that he has gradually caught up with Sasuke. Quote. Seeing Naruto's appearance, Gong Yi just smiled and didn't speak any further. What he was thinking now, some things in his head, Gong Yi naturally knew very well. At present, Gong Yi knows that Sasuke's existence is to stimulate Naruto, and Naruto's existence is also to stimulate Sasuke. Only in this way will they be able to work harder to strengthen themselves. That's how Gong Yi caught it. Therefore, the two continue to be promoted separately. Still, as Gong Yi thought, the two of them, the better for him. After all, the strength and ability of Asura and Indra cannot be ignored. I have completely mastered the two of them, so their power is naturally at my own use. Afternoon. Ah, are you going back already? Toad Fukasaku and Toad Shima couple looked at Gong Yi and Naruto and said something. Now that Naruto has completed his cultivation, we won't be staying for long. Gong Yi smiled and looked at Fukasaku and Shima below. After deciding to go back to Konoha village, Gong Yi went to the deep temple of Mount Myoboku, said goodbye to the great Toad Immortal, and was about to leave. After a short period of contact, the toads of Mount Myoboku are still very hospitable. At the same time, because of Naruto's relationship, Gong Yi naturally gave him respect. After all, their combat power is very high, and they may be used later. Well, one more ally is better than one more enemy. Although Gong Yi got the power of 10 tails, it does not mean that he is invincible and defiant. Once you have such an idea, it can only be said to be very stupid. Little Naruto, has Sage Mode been successfully learned? Toad Fukasaku's face showed shock, obviously a little unbelievable. It has only been a few days of work, and it is completely unexpected that it can succeed so quickly. The Sage Mode that even little Jiraiya can't fully learn. Was it actually learned by little Naruto in just a few days? Toad Shima also had a startled look on his face, feeling incredible. You know Jiraiya, his talent is very strong, but if you use Sage Mode, without the cooperation of the two of them, you may not be able to succeed at all. And when Jiraiya enters Sage Mode, there will still be a small amount of Toad characteristics. Therefore, Jiraiya's Sage Mode is very incomplete. It's all thanks to Uncle Gong Yi. To Gong Yi scratched his head and said with a smile, if it wasn't for Uncle Gongyi, I wouldn't be so fast. As expected of 5 generations of Hokage. Nodding his head, Toad Fukusuo praised with a profound expression on his face. The big Toad immortal once told him before that the 5 generations of Hokage in front of him must not remember. Provoke. Is the person in the prophecy really him? It's really scary. Toad Shenzuo showed a trace of fear, and couldn't help but secretly said. Although Mount Myoboku doesn't seem to ask about the secret realm of the world, they have already heard of some things in the ninja continent. Gong Yi's disciples Kimimaro, Hyuga Neji, they have a very high reputation in the ninja continent. Toad Fukasaku and Toad Shima know that the 5 generations of Hokage education disciples in front of them really have a set. From Naruto's learning of Sage Mode, you can actually understand it invisibly. Hokage in front of him are given a little time, he may be able to cultivate a large number of terrifying existences. Hehe, Elder Shenzuo, you are really serious. Gong Yi didn't show any complacent appearance, and said very modestly, it's because of the environment at Mount Myoboku and the effect of toad oil, which allows Naruto to progress so quickly in such a short time. Well, since there is nothing to do now, we will leave. Wait, Toad Fukasaku and Toad Shima will speak again, Gong Yi will be here immediately. Said. How can I have time to be here, and commercially blow each other, with the 2 toads here? Now Jiraiya should have just arrived at Omegakure village after leaving Mount Myoboku. It was almost time for him to send Naruto back to Konoha village, and then immediately head to Omegakure village. Bring destruction to the world, or new life. Soon, seeing Gong Yi walking away, Toad Shenzuo murmured alone with deep eyes, is it really just a matter of his thoughts? I hope that the picture that immortal Toad sees can become reality. Toad Shima also echoed along. Chapter 692. Just when Gong Yi brought Naruto back to Konoha village. Although the heavy dark clouds are still here in Omegakure village, the rain has completely stopped. Next to the tall buildings, a toad with bulging cheeks is looking around. Ha 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 ha. Inside the toad's stomach, bursts of laughter kept coming. It's not joy, it's man-made. Jiraiya was standing in front of the 2 ninjas, holding a feather that kept stimulating his armpit. Well, such torture. Except, Jiraiya, no one can think of it at all. Speak quickly. The ninja with Yuhi on his face, Jiraiya said with a smirk, tell me everything you know about pain. Hold on. Another ninja, biting Kiba and looking to the side to be tortured. The ninja shouted very seriously, don't divulge things about Lord Pain. Oh. The laughing ninja in front of him, he seemed to be really holding back, and Jiraiya couldn't help but secretly said, it's unexpected. Then only use a secret weapon. Chin, Jiraiya seemed to have made a decision. Secret weapon. Who just spoke righteously had a panic about the unknown on his face, what do you want to do? Hehe. If you don't confess. Jiraiya threw away her feathers, her face gradually showing gloom. I will use my magic to turn you into frogs. Quote. Hearing this, the 2 ninjas whose hearts had just raised their throats were speechless. The whole serious atmosphere seemed to disappear suddenly at this moment. The 2 looked at Jiraiya with a look that was almost completely incomprehensible. The reaction of the 2 made Jiraiya a little embarrassed. You don't humiliate us here. Even if I die, I will never betray Lord Pain. The 2 ninjas seemed to be very loyal as they struggled forward and shouted loudly. It looks like that's all it can do. Jiraiya shrugged, speaking with both hands immediately. Hand seal. Ninja frog transformation. After the hand seal, Jiraiya immediately put his hand on the head of one of the ninjas. Stop it! Was a muffled sound, accompanied by the screams of the ninja. A piece of white smoke appeared, and when it dispersed, a ninja outside was dumbfounded. Goo, goo, a frog with green and yellow pupils appeared in front of his eyes. Despicable, you are too mean. The last ninja, his face showed panic. Obviously, this situation made him feel very unacceptable. Oh, don't worry. Jiraiya turned her head and looked at him with an almost devilish look. It's your turn next. How about it? Are you ready to become a frog? Jiraiya said, putting his hand on his head. That, Lord Pain should be in the tallest tower in the west. Smug Yuhi Dizzy appeared on his face. The ninja's tone was fast and fluent, and he didn't have the righteousness he had before. Well, this ninja must be very afraid. After all, he doesn't want to really become a frog, and then live like this for the rest of his life. Tisk tisk, so that's what happened. The ninja's head, Jiraiya gave a wretched smile. What's the matter, did you betray so easily? Quote. Seeing that the ninja was a little embarrassed, Jiraiya did not continue to tease, but continued to ask with a gradually serious expression, but what you just said in your mouth should be. What do you mean? Actually, no one really knows the details of Lord Pain. The ninja didn't hide any more, and responded to Jiraiya's doubts. Nobody really knows. Jiraiya thought for a while and asked again, why do you say that? The ninja fell into memory and said slowly, of course there are rumors that he doesn't actually exist. Jiraiya looked a little surprised, but I investigated a few days ago and found that many of you respect him very much. Don't lie to me. HMPH, how could I lie to you? With a cold snort, the ninja said with a serious face, in this Omegakure village, Lord Pain is a godlike existence. It doesn't matter if it exists or not. As long as you can know that it is he who has been there, guarding us, that's fine. As for the issuance of orders and various activities, there will also be agents to personally execute them. Hearing this, Jiraiya looked confused. Agent. The restrained ninja nodded. That's right, it's Lord Angel. Quote. Hee, it's really hard to think that since he's your leader. A brief understanding, Jiraiya shook his head and showed sarcasm. In the end, even you guys didn't know his identity at all. That's naturally because of coping with such a situation. Hearing Jiraiya complaining, the ninja looked at the green frog out of the corner of his eye, and then looked at himself. Hee, you must be a ninja from the outer village. Gradually showing a sneer, the ninja said with disdain, our Lord Pain is constantly trying to capture the Jinchuriki column force from your outer village, so surely you still haven't given up. But I have to say that you are one of the few who can successfully enter Omegakure village. As if caught in some kind of memory, the ninja said again, but it's of no use, because even if you sneak in, you won't get useful news, and in the end you can only be like those. The rest of the ninja village guys, all the same. Killed by Lord Pain. Killed. A moment of silence, Jiraiya closed her eyes and smiled confidently. Who will be killed by whom? In fact, maybe. Her eyes in revealing a ray of light, Jiraiya smiled and said, it's too early for you to jump to conclusions like this. Really, then you don't understand as Master Pain at all. This ninjutsu is like turning a god into a believer. He laughed and said, he is a real god, you. Ordinary ninjas can't threaten him. God, it's kind of interesting. Jiraiya wasn't offended by what happened to the ninja, he just kept smiling. At this moment, outside the village of Omegakure, weather is getting clearer and the wet feeling has completely disappeared. Are many white paper butterflies flying around, they are filling every corner of Omegakure village. Chapter 693. Tsunade's worries. What? Tsunade stood in the Konoha village office, her face full of disbelief. Looked at Gongyi in disbelief. Jiraiya actually went to Omegakure village. Yes, Tsunade-sensei. Sitting on the Hokage chair, Gongyi shrugged and replied. After Naruto successfully completed his Sage Mode study, Gongyi took him back to Konoha village. Now when Jinchuriki column force from the village of Kurigakure was captured, the entire ninja continent seems to have entered a rare quiet state. Here in Konoha village, it has been considered by everyone to be the most severely attacked location, but it is still safe and sound. In the period of time that Gongyi has been away, nothing has happened to it at all. Pain doesn't seem to know what he's preparing. He didn't come directly to Konoha village to capture Kyubi, Nine Tails, as in the original book. No, Gung-yi can actually think that Pain may be too arrogant now. Naruto was sent to Mount Myoboku to practice. It is impossible for Akatsuki not to know about this. Instead, they should be the clearest. Later, he also entered Mount Myoboku, and it is estimated that they will know through some kind of news. The reason why Nagato didn't take action was because at 2 o'clock. One thing, because the Kyubi, Nine Tails, Jinchuriki, Column Force and himself were not in the village, it would have no meaning for him to come here. Second point is that Nagato has his own ideas. He feels that he is only worthy of coming here if he is in Konoha village. After owning Rinnegan, Nagato's mentality gradually expanded, and he didn't put anyone in his eyes at all. From the idea of claiming to be God alone, it can be clearly seen that he didn't care about anyone at all. It seems that in his eyes, no matter who, can't escape his punishment. How could he go to such a dangerous place? Tsunade couldn't believe it, and asked Gung-yi with a worried expression. Now although Tsunade has no feelings for Jiraiya at all, but as one of the few colleagues, she naturally didn't want Jiraiya to take risks. There were only a handful of ninjas left in that era. Well, not to mention Jiraiya, even if anyone in Konoha village went directly to a Megakure village like this, it was actually something Tsunade didn't want to see. Because a Megakure village is completely like a dragon pond and a tiger's den, it is absolutely impossible for those who enter it to come back alive. Previously, Konoha village had actually dispatched a few elite ninjas to investigate the news about Pain there. However, there were no returns, and not even a shred of information was passed on. So, under such circumstances, Jiraiya suddenly passed, and Tsunade was a little unacceptable. I have discouraged Jiraiya before. Closing the documents on the table, Gung-yi raised his head and said slowly, but Jiraiya, he seems to have made a decision. After all, he said that something like this has to be sacrificed, or that someone has to do it. Without much expression on his face, Gung-yi continued, do you think you've finished this? Should I agree, or continue to refuse? Tsunade was speechless. Jiraiya, one of Sannin, and Tsunade, who is also Sannin, understand his character. What Gung-yi said, I can really say it again and again. Indeed, for this matter, Jiraiya insisted, even if Tsunade sat in Gung-yi's seat. Maybe she will also implicitly acquiesce. Jiraiya is really impulsive. Tsunade shook his head and sat on the chair. There have been ninjas from several villages before, and all of them died there. The same is true of several elite ninjas on our side. Now Jiraiya should be very dangerous. I have already received the news. The strength of the leader of Akatsuki should not be underestimated. The Megakure village where he is located is naturally not something that ordinary ninjas can set foot in at will. Gung-yi nodded, showing a look of undeniable denial. Now I just have a bad feeling about it. Tsunade frowned, a hint of worry on his face. That's why you came to me today, because of this hunch. Gung-yi looked at Tsunade meaningfully, as if joking. He had just returned, and Tsunade found himself. Originally, she was asking about herself, but then she suddenly turned the subject to Jiraiya. This time, the two of them will talk about Jiraiya's side. It's really nothing to do. Looking at Tsunade's still thoughts, Gung-yi shrugged with a helpless smile. Could something happen to Jiraiya? Still a little worried, Tsunade looked at Gung-yi. Now that he can order those dangerous guys, this Akatsuki will never reveal any information easily. You don't have to worry about this, Tsunade-sensei. Gung-yi said in a deep voice. I have let Jiraiya leave with my kunai before. If he is in danger, if I receive a signal from him, I will immediately use the art of Hiraishin to reach him. Completely dispel Tsunade's concerns. Even if there is no Tsunade here, Gung-yi is actually ready to leave. After all, after calculating the time, Jiraiya may have entered Pain's position. Hope everything goes well. Hearing this, Tsunade's face softened a lot. Of course, she was equally worried about Gongyi. Although he knew that Gongyi was extremely powerful, no one in the entire ninja continent could threaten him. But, for the weird Akatsuki, it's natural to think too much. Don't worry Tsunade-sensei, Akatsuki can't find any trouble yet. With a smile on his face all the time, Gongyi didn't feel the slightest worry at all. His appearance seemed to give everyone an illusion. There seems to be nothing at all that can make this fifth-generation Hokage look ugly. As the natives of the Hokage world, they naturally have no foresight. But Gongyi is different, he has seen through everything after that. At the same time, he has also calculated the entire ninja continent, at least nothing can escape his control at the moment. Soon, after the side flickered away Tsunade with a few words, Gongyi immediately followed, leaving behind the Mokuden wood-style clone. Then he activated the Hiraishin technique and left the village of Konoha. Gongyi doesn't know what is going on with pain on Jiraiya's side, and how far it has developed. So he decided to go over and talk about it himself. With a hum, the technique of Hiraishin was continuously released. Dazzling, Gongyi has entered the realm of Rain Country. Chapter 694. Peace and Sacrifice. Just when Gongyi left Konoha village and went to Megakure village, Jiraiya here also completed the interrogation. Toad flat shadow manipulation. Hand seal with both hands, Jiraiya immediately. Using a secret technique, he lurked in the shadow of one of the ninjas. Flat shadow manipulation. It is a ninjutsu that hides oneself in someone's shadow and then manipulates the actions of others. Simply understanding the specific situation of pain, Jiraiya is not ready to hesitate any longer. Have been investigating the village of Megakure for several days, but have found basically nothing. To be said that now Jiraiya has deduced that the Akatsuki controlled by pain has been revealed a lot of secrets. But other than that, they are well hidden. Although this is their base camp, there is no leaked information at all. Even the lower-level ninjas of their masters don't even know if their pain really exists. To be said that they seem to be unscrupulous, and completely ignore all the ninja Omura, showing an extremely arrogant look. But in fact, they are very cautious, and their actions are very strict, and it should even be said that no water leaks. At least Jiraiya doesn't get any useful news at all for now. It seems that only 320 is enough to go to the place this guy said. Crawling out of the frog's mouth on the water, Jiraiya looked serious and made up his mind. Since we can't get any effective information from outside, we can only venture into that, where pain is rumored to be. Whoa, at this moment, just as Jiraiya dodged away. He's still there. As his mind moves next, a paper butterfly flies behind him in a blind spot. Although he is manipulating this Megakure village ninja, the chakra in his body can be clearly sensed. An ordinary ninja naturally cannot possess such prosperous power. But at this moment Jiraiya is still there, dodging away, not paying attention to the paper butterfly that stopped behind her. It seems that it is quietly watching its back at this moment. In the center of a Megakure village, inside the towering core building, countless paper butterflies began to gather and gradually formed the appearance of Conan. Found the intruder. Pain, who was standing in front, looked at Conan out of the corner of his eye. Pain at this moment is not the heavenly path before, but another orange-haired woman, she is Pain the Beast. Well, I have found it. Conan nodded and said coldly, it's Jiraiya. Pain showed a hint of hesitation, and then smiled, so it's Mr. Jiraiya, it's really nostalgic. What's next, Pain? Conan asked. Anyway, he's our comrade. Yes, probably. Pain's face gradually lost his expression and said lightly, if that's the case, then kill him. As of now, there is nothing to be missed. Turning back slowly, Pain continued, it is because I want to kill the intruder that I dispatched this body. Now that our plans have gotten to this point, Pain looked at Conan with an indifferent look. Then absolutely don't allow anyone to come and destroy it. There's really no good way now. Hearing what Pain said, Conan didn't seem to have the slightest expression on his face. The visitor is not good today, he obviously wants to get our information. Haha, since we started to collect the tailed beasts, too many people have come to our village. Sketching a disdainful smile, Pain fell into the memory, but what they sent are the so-called elites, but they have no effect at all, they can only return without success. Never mind this time, even if it's teacher Jiraiya, it's equally impossible for him to succeed. Stepping out of the building, Pain came to the open-air platform. Front of it is a piece of towering Megakure village buildings, and they are densely packed with people who obviously live here. Rain had stopped at this moment, the dark clouds were still thick, and the entire Megakure village was still plunged into darkness. It is always necessary to sacrifice some people in order to achieve true peace. Pain's face was expressionless, without the slightest movement on his face. He just said coldly, "What's more, it's just a mere teacher Jiraiya, he is actually honored to die, after all, so that everyone will not continue to suffer for the war-torn days." He also calculated a little bit of strength. Yes. Conan stood in the back, she nodded and didn't say much. So far, Conan supports everything Nagato does now. She has no reason to refute Nagato here. Okay Conan, lead the way. Without continuing to speak, Pain said. Got it. Conan responded, and the body that had just appeared had begun to gradually disintegrate again. One of the pieces of paper separated from the body, it automatically folded into the shape of a paper plane, floating in front of Pain's brutish way. Pain, before you arrive. Conan continued for a while, then said, let me go and deal with him first. Well. Pain nodded, turned his head to look at Conan, who was about to collapse. If you can kill him, then do it. Quote. Conan, whose half-body had turned into paper, did not speak again. With the sound of Pain's words falling, she also immediately completely decomposed. Countless white papers, they began to turn into origami butterflies, and spread out again. It's gradually getting into the night. In the village of Megakure, the sound of the rain was no longer there. The whole surrounding was empty at the moment, extremely quiet. Unlike Konoha village, the facilities in Megakure village are not perfect. At this moment, I walked towards the towering building in the center, and the street lights around were extremely dim. That used to be bustling before are now devoid of people. Jiraiya is hiding in the shadow of the previous Megakure village ninja, constantly manipulating him to dodge. Jiraiya hasn't had any trouble since sneaking in here for a few days. This made him unconscious and began to gradually become careless. Although it seems to be still cautious, the flaws can also be seen. Jiraiya's whole mind at the moment is all about how to get in touch with Pain next. He had no idea that he had been exposed to Nagato's eyes long ago. Not long. Jiraiya can already see that he is gradually approaching the tall building in the center. Chapter 695. The Role of the Negative. A buzzing sound, the Hiraishin technique was activated again, and Gongyi had already entered the village of Megakure. In the silent night, everything is still as it is, and no one notices it at all. The seeds of divine consciousness, the powerful chakra power in Gongyi's body has long been restrained. Now that Gongyi's entered, Pain didn't notice at all. Even if he uses the Rain Tiger Freedom technique, Gongyi is completely immune. That's why Gongyi doesn't. Needless to say, the effect of this divine sense seed is really great. At least for such a long time, its existence has saved me a lot of trouble. At the same time, continuously using the teleportation technique, Jiraiya dodged several times in succession, and was about to reach the target position. Lurking in the shadows of the ninjas in Megakure village, Jiraiya was safe all the way, and was not noticed by the rest of the patrolling ninjas. Perceived by Pain the moment he entered Megakure village. But the rest of the people were completely ignorant, and they were all trapped in the valley. Walking forward, the sound of footsteps echoed all around. Next second, Jiraiya's expression froze and stopped. I saw white paper floating in the sky at the moment, as if they were waiting for Jiraiya's arrival. When I saw him appear, these white papers immediately rioted. They seemed to come to life in an instant, moving towards Jiraiya immediately. Pack away. Instant, they wrapped the Omegakure village ninja controlled by Jiraiya like a zongzi. Everything happened in a flash. In front of him, these pieces of paper floating in the air also converged to become Conan's appearance, when her upper body appeared. Raising her hand, she held the long thorn formed by countless pieces of paper in her hand, and stabbed it forward. Kaden fire style, fire bullet. The moment Conan falls to attack, Jiraiya is on the shadow of the ninja in the village of Omegakure, immediately. Bare half-body open mouth and spit out a Kaden fire style. By Kaden fire style chakra, they are wildly vented, and they are agitated in pieces. Conan's icy complexion froze, she quickly backed away, and countless pieces of white paper began to cover her eyes. Like an invisible paper shield, it directly blocked Jiraiya's Kaden fire style ninjutsu. Toad flat shadow manipulation. The gray smoke from Kaden fire style gradually dissipated, Conan murmured, staring at Jiraiya ahead. White paper kept floating around, surrounding Conan. There was no joy, anger or sadness on her face, but she was still indifferent. It was originally a bait thrown to lure pain. Of Omegakure village, Jiraiya emerges from his shadow. With an unspeakable smile on his face, he said lightly, "Haha, has it already started?" Just when the two were fighting, Gong Yi came here. Although I don't know the current location of Jiraiya, but with strong perception. Gong Yi naturally knew that there was a big battle here. As one with the ability of a prophet, it is natural to know that Conan and Jiraiya should be fighting here. Gong Yi was standing on the towering building, he was hiding in the dark, as if he didn't exist. Now he has no choice. Conan and Nagato are still his disciples after all, and Gong Yi doesn't want to let Jiraiya know something, and after endangering her life, she decides immediately. Save him. Otherwise, if you come forward directly now and kill Nagato at the same time, it is very likely that it will have a negative effect. He was obviously here to save him, but Jiraiya would definitely not appreciate it. Because he was the disciple who killed him, and he didn't seem to understand anything at all. Well, this is not the ending that Gong Yi had in mind. Therefore, he decided to take a look here for a while, and then talk about other things. Your ninjutsu is even sharper. The smile on Jiraiya's face continued, and he looked at Conan, who was only half-bodied in front of him. Well, she has also become a good woman, Conan. I thought you were dead before. Chin with his hand, Jiraiya said, I didn't expect it to turn into a fluffy piece of paper. God, Lord Angel. Omegakure village, who was half kneeling on the ground, also gradually reflected at this time. Angel Lord. Hearing this, Jiraiya continued, it looks like Conan, you are Pain's spokesperson. Now what do you guys want to do, and who is Pain's true identity? What we want to do, Pain's true identity, has nothing to do with you, teacher. As Conan spoke, the entire half-body gradually floated up into the sky. A large number of white pieces of paper began to gather behind Conan, forming huge paper wings. She seems to be really like an angel. God's order now, so I will kill you. There is no joy of reunion after a long absence, the two are more like unfamiliar enemies. Conan has a deadpan expression from start to finish, and doesn't have any desire to catch up with Jiraiya or anything like that. Where are Yahiko and Nagato? And Yahiko, how can you have Nagato's Rinnegan? The face that had been smiling before became serious, and Jiraiya could understand. Conan in front of him is no longer the child he knew back then. Unlike the original, the current Jiraiya knows that Yahiko has Rinnegan. But for some reason, he also has a lot of questions in his mind. It's about Nagato, and it's about Yahiko. After all, Nagato, who was behind the scenes before, never went out. So Jiraiya has no idea, how could this all happen? Even he doesn't know Pain's connection with Yahiko. Although there are rumors in the ninja world that Yahiko is Pain, but Jiraiya doesn't believe it. You don't need to care about these teachers anymore. Dance of the Shikigami Paper Rain. With a huge wing, 2 pairs of paper wings quickly blast out countless pieces of paper. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The paper made a sound of breaking through the air, like a sharp arrow, madly going towards Jiraiya. Kaden fire style, fire bullet. Jiraiya's mouth bulged, and a large burst of flames spewed forward. Hula. Countless pieces of paper and pieces of flame collided instantly. At this moment, the two are actually on the same level, stalemate in the air. Haha, what a scene where master and apprentice kill each other. Hidden in the dark, Gongyi shook his head with a wry smile. For the Akatsuki in front of him now, Gongyi is naturally a complete master. As for Jiraiya's puzzled questions, Gongyi can also manage them smoothly. It's just that Gongyi didn't tell Jiraiya at all. Chapter 696. Dance of the Shikigami, Konan. But I have to say, Konan's ninjutsu is really good. Looking at the papers floating around Konan, and her personal state, Gongyi showed a faint smile and couldn't help but praise. Paper escape, this past life was called another Kekkei Genkei ability. Although Gongyi clearly knew that Konan should be called a special secret technique, not an ability. But Gongyi is still habitual, calling it paper escape. Well, as usual, according to Gongyi's understanding, this ninjutsu should be called Dance of the Shikigami. Simply put, it is the ability to inject chakra into paper to control the paper for attack, defense, reconnaissance and other work. And when attacking, you can also mix in the detonator to enhance the effect of the attack, which can be adapted to various situations. At the same time, it can also convert itself into paper at any time to achieve the purpose of immunity to physical attacks. But in Dance of the Shikigami, it needs to consume chakra at any time. Once the chakra is exhausted, it will be unwrapped. If it is immersed in oil, it will not be able to be paperized smoothly. However, although this ninjutsu looks good, there are not many people who can really use it like this. Even in the entire ninja continent, I am afraid that only Konan can use it. Well, Konan is able to use Dance of the Shikigami, after all, which can be achieved by turning the body into paper. In this case, she can also be immune to the damage caused by physical attacks even invisibly. Well, it's almost impossible to damage Konan with pure physical attacks. In addition, Konan himself can also attack, clone, defend, camouflage and fly. Therefore, Konan's Dance of the Shikigami's perfect power is a word. A trick that can be eaten all over the world. It is because of this Dance of the Shikigami's ability that Konan's role is great. Whether it's combat or reconnaissance, all of them are very good. Especially, the most impressive thing about Gongyi is her 60 billion detonating charm. Well, she wants to sneak up on Uchiha Obito by disguising it as the sea. Even his Kamui is completely cracked and there is no way to escape. If it weren't for Uchiha Obito, he used the transplanted Sharingan to launch the ultimate forbidden technique of the Uchiha family, Izanagi, turning all explosions into illusions. I am afraid that with Konan's side alone, Hokage Ninja can be brought to an end. But fortunately, this will be a kung fu, and now Gongyi uses his powerful divine sense to clearly feel it. At least for now, she doesn't seem to have the trap of these 60 billion detonating charms. Don't say that Uchiha Obito is afraid, even Gongyi is very afraid. This is not thousands, tens of thousands, but 600 billion. If Konan really gave him a stab at it, Gongyi knew that he wouldn't be threatened with death. But that feeling is definitely going to be unusual. Therefore, When he decided to kill Nagato today, Gongyi also guarded against Conan's hand. Who knows, will she suddenly create so many detonators? But through Kimamaro's current investigation, Gongyi also knows. On the Ninja World continent, it seems that no one is buying this thing wantonly. So Gongyi can guess that, according to the original situation, Conan should be preparing these things after Nagato's death. Therefore, so far, it seems that I don't have to worry about Conan's last 600 billion detonating charms. In the field. While Gongyi was still thinking, Jiraiya had tied Conan in the air with her hair. He didn't go for a second attack at this moment, but looked at her and said lightly, "What do you want now? I didn't expect that you, the most gentle of the three, would actually become like this." Feeling a little sad, Jiraiya said with a bit of unacceptability, "You seem to have completely deviated from the original intention of creating this organization, and now you have begun to walk into the abyss step by step." Gradually entering into memory, Jiraiya couldn't help recalling the previous scene. Nagato, who looked at the stable Nagato back then, has disappeared. Yahiko, who was waving his fists to change the world and make it peaceful, he actually had Rinnegan inexplicably, and at this moment, he deviates from his original intention. Wanton meddling in the war, killing people, while constantly collecting tailed beasts. Akatsuki's reputation was not what they expected. Thinking of this, Jiraiya even started to feel a little self-blame in her heart. Obviously, the situation of the three now has a lot to do with his own education. If you don't leave there, but choose to continue to accompany the three of them, then in the end, will another one seem to fall into some kind of emotion? Jiraiya began to feel. Akatsuki's appearance is inseparable from himself. Because of Gongyi's intervention, it is completely different from the original. Today's Jiraiya, although does not know too many secrets. But I also probably knew something about Akatsuki and the others. Do you regret it a little, Mr. Jiraiya? Conan, who was bound, did not move, and said with a cold face, "Did you think it would be better to listen to Orochimaru's words and kill us directly?" Back to his senses, Jiraiya shook his head and said sadly, "I have never thought about such things as regrets. I didn't kill you guys. It's just that I feel very sad. I taught you how to survive in troubled times. There is no doubt that you are my disciples." Jiraiya stared at Conan in the air, knowing that the world is hard, and he did not say hello to me, and so contrary to the original intention, this really makes me feel chills. It seems that you still don't know us, teacher. Conan, who had been silent for a long time, finally opened her mouth. It seems that you don't know anything about what happened after you left. You have no idea what happened to us after you left, teacher. I really don't understand. Jiraiya's face gradually became serious. I can't understand, how did you develop Akatsuki like this? As this, the peace you spoke of at the beginning. Give it up, now all you have created is suffering, and there is no peace at all. Jiraiya still did not give up, and dissuaded. Akatsuki is not wrong, that is our answer through everything. Just as Jiraiya's voice fell, an indifferent voice suddenly appeared. I saw Pain Beastly, standing on the towering platform with a grim expression and looking at Jiraiya. Long time no see, teacher Jiraiya. Chapter 697. Jiraiya and Pain. Looking at the sudden voice, Jiraiya frowned. Pain's savage way in front of her made Jiraiya's heart even more puzzled. The appearance has changed a lot, and she has completely turned into a woman. But those eyes will never admit wrong. It's Rinnegan. Jiraiya's face is very rich as he stares at Pain, who is wearing a black Yuhi cloud robe. Although he can guess a lot of things, but now he can't understand at all, how could Yahiko become a woman who had Rinnegan before? But Jiraiya has to say that she also seems to feel a familiar feeling in her. Yahiko like orange hair, and that look of indifference. That Yahiko used some kind of secret technique. Are you Nagato? Jiraiya raised her head and said incredulously, are you or Yahiko? It seems that not only are you not developing in the right direction, but there are even problems with your growth. A completely bewildered Jiraiya, who knows the true secret of pain's 6 paths. This matter Gongyi once only told Terumi Mei. Now she's still there, strictly kept secret, not even from some of the higher-ups in the village of Kurigakure. This is a very important secret for Terumi Mei. Terumi Mei naturally won't leak them easily until Gongyi makes them public. What happened to you all these years? Jiraiya raised her head and asked in a deep voice. What the hell happened to us, who am I or not? Pain's animal face was expressionless. These you don't need to know, after all. You're just an outsider. It's really abominable to say such a thing. Jiraiya's complexion changed, and she bit Kiba. Hey, you guys have really changed. Pain's ruthless words stung his heart. Jiraiya's face changed, and it seemed that she couldn't express any emotion. 4 people got along for a long time after all, although he left after that. But such emotions and ties are naturally not washed away by time. Just as Gongyi thought before, Jiraiya said that he came to a Megakure village to investigate information. But in fact, he also has a little selfishness. Gongyi, who is in the dark at the moment, his smile has gradually disappeared. The indifference returned to his face, and he was quietly examining the battle below. Gongyi knows exactly what Jiraiya is thinking, but he didn't reveal it. This Megakure village, another purpose of Jiraiya is to dissuade Yahiko and the others from abandoning evil and turning to good. When a series of news from Akatsuki's side spread to Jinchuriki column force of the 5 major ninja villages in the ninja continent, 444 groups have already captured them. Jiraiya can't wait. He can't see the trio of 3 going on, it's the wrong path. So when he came today, Gongyi also knew that he still wanted to save, without giving up them. Thoughts came to this. Gongyi, who had known everything for a long time, revealed his playfulness. Sure enough, this so-called tie is the most useless thing. For Gongyi, Jiraiya's approach is undoubtedly very stupid. It is because of this that Gongyi didn't decide immediately before. Get started. Jiraiya hasn't tasted the pain yet, he's still there, holding on to hope. So Gongyi will appear and kill Nagato decisively. This case, he would instead destroy Jiraiya's plan. In his heart was completely extinguished by the threat of death, it would not be too late for him to take action. It's also a lesson for Jiraiya. After all, Sarutobi Hiruzen's so-called will of fire is really annoying enough. Rinnegan's psychic technique. Pain's animal voice fell, immediately. Both hands hand seal. Next second, a circular psychic spell appeared on the wall behind him. A burst of white mist erupted, and a huge Yuhi-colored crab emerged from it. Hula. When it appears the moment cannot help but say, immediately. Spit out a sheet of white liquid at Jiraiya. The moment the attack fell, Jiraiya pulled her hair back immediately. Explosion retreated to the back, and then stepped on the high wall beside it. Almost as soon as his forefoot and hindfoot left, still, Conan in the sky immediately. Submerged in white liquid. The same is true for the entire surrounding open space, a patch of white flowers. Bubble. Jiraiya stared at the liquid under him. He looked up at Pain, who was standing high, and smiled. As expected of my disciple, he knows my weaknesses completely. Hee, psychic crab. It's really just like the original. Darkness, a pair of deep eyes revealed a bright light. No one below noticed. Gongyi was just standing here watching them. At this moment, Gongyi, when he saw that the battle had begun, he was also constantly thinking. What I saw was exactly what I expected. Looking down at the large amount of foam that the psychic crab spit out, Gongyi naturally knew that Pain was a beast for a long time. The ability of psychic beasts. Don't look at this mere bubble, it doesn't seem to have any attack power. But it can perfectly purify. For example, fire, sweeten, water style, oil, etc. can remove all the effects of ninjutsu. Invisibly, it basically makes the opponent's previous strategy useless. It is a strong auxiliary ability. Conan, please step back. Did you use the foam to wash off the oil? The battlefield below, seeing Conan reappear, Jiraiya also analyzed it. Hula. The moment Conan was just leaving behind, Pain waved his hands. The white foam below turned into a tsunami like mad wolf and devoured it towards Jiraiya. Although it was foam, at this moment when they hit the wall, they also made a rumbling sound. The technique of chaotic lion hair. When Jiraiya retreated, the yuhi-colored crab that had just disappeared in the white foam appeared again. The huge pliers held the gangwind and waved it without the slightest sympathy. Quickly hand seal with both hands, the chakra power in the body is suddenly released. Jiraiya's docile white head immediately turns into a barb, and it grows quickly and then sticks out. They are like white steel ropes that bind the whole yuhi-colored crab that comes out of the foam. Was a muffled sound, this psychic beast had no effect, and immediately into a white smoke by Jiraiya. However, all of this is not over. Philu reminds you, 3 things to read and collect, and push the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 playmates to find 99 novels and LT, otherwise the collection of IP. Chapter 698. Pain makes me grow. After breaking Pain's psychic beast, Jiraiya's next attack came to Pain in the blink of an eye. The speed is so fast that people can't react at all. Another loud noise came out, and the rumbling sound spread all around. The entire surrounding buildings trembled. Obviously just a strand of hair, but it's exceptionally strong, and its destructive power is also huge. I'll ask you one last time. Pain, who was wrapped in hair in front of him, Jiraiya asked with a serious face, "Who are you, Yahiko or Nagato, and what have you experienced?" It seems that he still refuses to give up, and now Jiraiya is full of confusion. He couldn't imagine how this could become like this now. What's the point of you asking these? Pain's face was indifferent, and he didn't see any fear at all. Even if he was completely imprisoned by Jiraiya, he still smiled calmly. You can think that they are all dead. What? Jiraiya sank inwardly and seemed completely unable to accept the answer. You bastard, what are you talking about? How stupid. Gong Yi, who was at the top, seemed to have lost his sight. For something like this, it's just. There's no doubt about it, Jiraiya is just wasting her time. Gong Yi couldn't even understand how he could have endured here for so long. For Jiraiya's approach, Gong Yi is really unacceptable. If it was him, he would just wipe it all out without mercy. Although I have to say, Jiraiya is a poor person, without friends or family, wandering alone, watching the fireworks of war and the passing of friends. Whoever it is, it actually causes distortion. But Jiraiya, his anguish and misfortune, never vented. Now the apprentice he wanted to save was suddenly indifferent and wanted to kill him. This is annoying and a little unacceptable. According to the original work, Jiraiya's life has helped many people, but in the end, he can't live in peace. Normal people, this is indeed unfair or unacceptable. But for Gong Yi at the moment, this is not the case. He appreciates Jiraiya's ability. As for other things, Gong Yi is not on his mind. The world of Hokage ninjas is not as beautiful as imagined. One tragic thing after another, more miserable than Jiraiya, Gong Yi has seen a lot, so now he doesn't show the heart of the virgin at all. If you don't need to use Jiraiya or value Jiraiya's ability, you want to subdue and use it. Maybe today, Gong Yi won't come here in person. A short time, Z and Pain below have ended their conversation. The booming sound came again. The two fought, and a new round of confrontation began again. Too many people have died here. Pain said that at this time, his pair of wavy Rinnegan's radiated strange light. Mr. Jiraiya, you will also be one of the members who will sacrifice for the whole plan next. At this moment, it's going to work. Pain doesn't want to be here to talk nonsense with Jiraiya. Unlike the original book, it seems that the current Pain wants to end this boring battle quickly. The chakra that belongs to Pain explodes wildly. At this moment, the neatly arranged aqueducts were dry, as if they could not withstand such pressure. Their death pains me, and pain makes me grow. Pain raised his hands. Rinnegan at the moment looked at Jiraiya as if he was looking at a dead man. Ignorant children can only grow up after knowing the pain. If this is what you call growing up, then I can't agree with it at all. Jiraiya bit Kiba. A pair of eyes were also fixed on Pain, who was in front of him. This familiar and unfamiliar feeling made Jiraiya lose her judgment. He couldn't guess who the guy with Rinnegan in front of him was. I can't agree. Seeing Jiraiya getting ready to shoot, Pain sneered, Mr. Jiraiya. You're just a mortal after all. And I'm different. Silent for half a second, Pain's animal path seemed to have entered a surprisingly calm state. After feeling the infinite pain, he surpassed mortals and continued to grow. What do you say? Jiraiya's complexion changed, and it was difficult to understand what Pain's animal life was narrating. If you say something, you won't understand, Mr. Jiraiya. Pain shook his head. He didn't have the desire to say any more. He just gradually sketched a smile. After all, the identities of the two of us are different. You are a mortal who has been blinded, and I am different. Pause. Pain said slowly again, yes, I have already transformed from a mortal to a god. So, when you become a god, you will naturally think about it from the perspective of God, and if you can understand these things, it will be abnormal. Silent for a long time, Jiraiya, who didn't speak again, seemed unbelievable. God, I didn't expect you to be so paranoid. Paranoia. Hearing that Jiraiya was almost sarcastic, Pain didn't show the slightest anger, but showed playfulness. Mortals are mortals. They can't see the facts clearly from the perspective of gods, and as a real god, you find it a little difficult. The things of belief seem to me to be normal. What the hell do you want to do? A big wave of her hand. Jiraiya doesn't want to be involved in these things with the Pain in front of her. Is a god or a mortal, such a thing has no meaning at all for Jiraiya. He cares more about is what he thinks in his heart. Why did Conan become like this, and what happened to Yahiko and Nagato? There is also the rumored Rinnegan belonging to the Six Paths Immortal in the ninja world. How could it appear on Nagato and then on Yahiko? Today, it actually appeared on a woman's body. Jiraiya can't believe it at all now. She looked at the guy in front of her. She seemed to know her own appearance very well. Makes Jiraiya a little suspicious of life. Chapter 699. Hand seal with feet. What are you going to do? Seeing Jiraiya's appearance, Pain's animal path didn't waver at all. He smiled coldly and continued lightly, Mr. Jiraiya, what I want to do is naturally very simple. Slowly closing his eyes, Pain no longer looked at Jiraiya, but said to himself, I want to put a stop to this war-filled world. Said this, he opened his eyes again, and a pair of rippling Rinnegans showed a strange look. This is the responsibility of God. Since this is your purpose, why are you collecting tailed beasts? Jiraiya looked bad, looked up at Pain in front of her and asked. What's the point of such a thing for? A dead person. Different from the original book, now Pain's animal way doesn't speak at all, immediately hand seal with both hands. Rinnegan's art of psychic art. A white smoke appeared again. Jiraiya immediately also gave up the idea of continuing to restrain Pain's animal path, and walked away to the rear. A hula, the smoke dispersed, and a green chameleon emerged, lying on the high wall. Pain the brutish way immediately dodged, and when it reappeared, it was already above its head. Teacher, you should make your due consciousness and die obediently. Face was indifferent, as if he was giving an ultimatum to Jiraiya. Damn, to be treated as a little kid by a kid. Jiraiya immediately hand seal with both hands. I couldn't help but scolded me for the next shot. Another muffled sound came from under Jiraiya. Wait, Pain's beasts attacked from this side, and a piece of white smoke enveloped Jiraiya in it. Don't underestimate me, because I'm no longer human. Jiraiya's voice came from the white mist, and as it gradually dispersed, only Jiraiya's voice continued to say, "It was Sanin, now it is a fairy." Pain said that at this time, it was already clear that after the smoke had dispersed, Jiraiya put on a classic look with a confident smile. Jiraiya could speak again. He suddenly stumbled because his feet were unstable. I saw below, there was already a gigantic toad. It holds a huge iron fork and carries an iron shield on its back. Ignoring the toad, Pain said coldly, "Teacher, you really haven't grown at all, you're still as stupid as before." Hee, is it finally time to start? Still here, watching the two of them keep coming and going and talking about Gongyi, he smiled faintly. The useless conversation between the two of them now makes Gongyi feel a little bored. He even felt that this time was just a waste of his time. But fortunately, it will take time, since the two have already fought. Jiraiya should soon be passive. And Gongyi is good at kung fu, and naturally he won't anymore. In Gongyi's view, it seems that the sooner this matter is resolved, the better. Procrastinating like this will just waste Gongyi's time in vain. Now when Jiraiya's side, one of the top of the mountain, that is, the second son of the two immortals, Toujien, came out, and the battle between the two began to ignite. Swallowed by the green chameleon immediately. Waiting here, Jiraiya goes to preemptive attack again, and sees Pain's side immediately. Disappeared. Completely invisible. When you look at it with the naked eye, you see a and catch Pain's figure at all. Do you want? Yes, I need to summon those two adults now. Seeing Pain in front of her, Jiraiya naturally knew that the situation was grim. He said slowly and solemnly, "This guy in front of you can't be underestimated. From the beginning, it seems that you have to go all out. I have to turn on sage mode now." After Jiraiya used his own blood to draw 2 more lines on his face, he looked down at Toujien below and said, "But it will take a little time to do all this now. During this time, my folded hands can be separated. So please, I need you to buy me time before that." "I see." Toujien raised his eyes to look at Jiraiya standing on top of his head, and said slowly, "Although I am very useless, but I will try my best." "Good." Jiraiya nodded here, immediately. Also looked around. Now this guy seems to have entered a state of invisibility. If that's the case, then we can only deal with it by using enchantment tactics. Hands folded, Jiraiya looked up and kept staring in front of her. The next second, he immediately jump up, get clogs under your feet immediately. One touch. A crisp sound came out. Jiraiya landed on Toujien's head again, and then his long white hair was tossed. A method belonging to Jiraiya's specially made hand seal appeared, and an invisible barrier of perception began to be released. With Jiraiya as the center, they began to spread around. Watching Jiraiya hand seal with her feet, Gongyi shrugged and couldn't help but smile. This is really novel. Although Gongyi had read the original book, he knew there was such a scene. But I have to say that when I see it in person and understand these, I can't help but feel funny. Some ninjas, like themselves, can use ninjutsu without the hand seal. Some are directly one-handed seals, and can also release ninjutsu. But through the release of these feet, Gongyi completely felt that this was the first time he had seen it. And it seems that if you think about it carefully, in the entire ninja world, it seems that only Jiraiya can hand seal with her feet. Well, it seems like this. At the same time, while Gongyi is still thinking here, Pain's animal path hidden in the green chameleon's mouth. He was quietly watching Jiraiya below, ready to strike him at his weakest. I remember that as long as you get involved in it, you will be immediately attacked. Perceived enchantment ninjutsu. Heads. A pair of Rinagans seemed to have seen through the perception barrier that was constantly spreading up, down, left, and right. Pain didn't have the slightest nervousness on the animal face, he just muttered to himself indifferently. If that's the case, then let's get started, teacher. Pain said the beast, and put his hand below. Boom! A loud noise came out. Jiraiya immediately. Raise your head to look upwards. Psychic beast with three dog heads, they charged down with a big mouth full of kiba. The psychic split dog who attacked Terumi Kurigakure village before. Let's go, Toadken. Jiraiya bit kiba, immediately. Drink. Good. Toad's strong and powerful legs immediately. Kick. Jiraiya's side did not retreat but started to attack. Philo reminds you. 3 things to read, collect, push and watch the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 playmates, find 99 novels and LT, or block the collection of IP. Chapter 700. The Conjecture of the Psychic Beast. Central area of a Megakure village. This is in a core building. The towering walls all around are hundreds of meters high. On top of them, there are neat rows of water pipes nailed. Boom, boom. The loud noises are constantly heard, and now the place has been continuously damaged. Countless gravels fell one after another, smashing into the ground to form deep pits and cracks. I saw that Tojian was holding a huge iron fork in his hand at the moment, and he was fighting in an embarrassed manner against dozens of psychic split dogs. And Jiraiya also left the top of its head, and the whole person is constantly fleeing. Now behind him, a huge psychic bird is also chasing him closely. A closer look, the pupil of this psychic bird also has the same ripple-shaped rinnegan as Pain. Archaeopteryx. It is also one of the psychic beasts who was just summoned by Pain's animal path and wanted to kill Jiraiya. Not long ago, the two have been fighting fiercely for a long time. Like the original book, Pain shows no mercy at all of which are very deadly threats. Because Jiraiya is in the preparation stage of Sage mode, he is starting to be very passive. Kaden Fire Style Flame Bomb. When one of Jiraiya's clones is killed by the psychic Archaeopteryx, the side belongs to Jiraiya's body, immediately. Jump out, spit out pieces of fire. When it turned its head sideways, it was immediately devoured. There is no possibility of escape at all. Hehe. Successfully killed one. Looking at Archaeopteryx turning into white mist in the flames, Jiraiya smiled. But before he could get excited again, I saw the Indian pattern that can only be obtained by summoning spirits appeared behind him again. A bang, Jiraiya's face froze again. When he turned his head, a pair of pupils dilated and contracted. How is it possible, or aren't these psychic beasts one after another? Just kidding. Front of him, a huge black rhino, it burst out in rage and slammed towards Jiraiya. Haha, this Pain animal is still a bit interesting. Quietly using his divine sense to perceive the battle below, Gong Yi doesn't. You secretly said. Now normally speaking, the psychic beasts that keep appearing are indeed a bit surprising. After all, under normal circumstances, a single person can only psychic out a psychic beast. And the blood contract they belong to is only for a single ethnic group. However, Gong Yi clearly knew that Pei Sheng said these things. Psychic beasts, but that's not the case. They are of different types, and each has the same abilities. But although most people don't know it, they may be surprised, but Gong Yi is quite normal. Although it is in the previous life, there is no complete record in the original book, why Pain can be like this. It was Rinnegan, but Gong Yi didn't think so. Especially with these few personal sightings, Gong Yi has already deduced that the psychic beast summoned by the Pain animal Dao is likely to be a corpse. The bodies of each of their psychic beasts can be seen, and they are completely broken. And its psychic beast itself even had a black stick inserted, and its pupils even became Rinnegan. A simple analysis, Gong Yi. It can be found that the principle of their group of psychic beasts seems to belong to the same as Pain's 6 paths. They should be existences created by Nagato, and at the same time these psychic beasts should be the corpses controlled by Pain's animal life as the main body. This way, it can be perfectly explained, the reason why these psychic beasts appeared, and the relationship they have with Rinnegan. Particular, Gong Yi can also perceive that they do not have the slightest vitality, so his own guess Gong Yi thinks it is more correct. Boom! The roaring sound of the battlefield below is non-stop. When Gong Yi analyzed Pain's animal way, Jiraiya was not as leisurely as him. At this moment, Tojian has fallen to the ground, gasping for breath, and the huge iron fork in his hand has become a little unsteady. Different from the original, now Jiraiya's side is also beginning to fall into passive. He even knew how to do it, and he wanted if he couldn't, he had to give up the opening of Sage Mode. Because of Gong Yi's original relationship, Pain is stronger than in the original. With today's Jiraiya, he wants to keep his hands still like this, and he has been dragging with Pain and can't do it anymore. It's really abominable. When the caster is invisible, even if you want to attack him, it will not help at all. Jiraiya frowned and seemed to feel a little uncomfortable, not to mention that I can't separate my hands now, and I might die. Tojian, don't you feel a little strange now? While Jiraiya stared at the split dogs that surrounded them, and the rhinoceros in front of them, whether it's Nagato or not, now with his ability, it seems that he should be able to use ninjutsu to attack us, and even shoot himself. Use pupil technique to consume. But Jiraiya hesitated, he just keeps using this weird psychic beast to attack us right now. Is it because some people feel that they don't need to take action against me? Thinking of something, Jiraiya bit Kiba, as if feeling humiliated, it might be underestimated. I may not be able to hold on anymore. Tojian seems to have reached the limit, and its eyes have been a little bit closed. It can already be seen that its strength is outstanding after fighting against the dozens of split dogs just now. But no matter how hard it is, the psychic beasts in front of you are one after another, and there are more and more split dogs, which makes it completely unstoppable. Okay, go back first, hard work. Jiraiya looked gloomy, he said to Tojian below. Things seem to have started to go bad. Not good, but Jiraiya didn't force it to stay here. Sorry. Words fell, and the sound of Jian's bang disappeared instantly. It looks like it's over, teacher. Inside the psychic chameleon, Pain's animal way again hand seal. He doesn't seem to want Jiraiya to turn on Sage Mode, he just wants a quick fix. The same white smoke appeared again, but this time it was not a psychic beast that came out. Just when Jiraiya was still there, when he was under the siege of the split dog, and the rhinoceros and other psychic beasts. He didn't even notice that there was another person behind him. He was also wearing a large black robe with Yuhi-colored auspicious clouds embroidered on it. And he is also full of black chakra sticks, and a pair of eyes are also Rinnegan. Pain Shira Road. To see the underlined version of the novel, please download the latest chapter of Fei Lu Shao Kan.